home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They got him, it's a sack!
Sixers.
Oh, baby!
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And we are streaming live, as always, on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Well, the Eagles made some news today, just not the news we all were looking for. Adam Schefter had some interesting comments this morning on Sportsmanlike. Heard 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern here on 97.3 ESPN about the Birds. Phillies spring training is on. They lead 1-0 right now. Not that wins and losses in spring training mean anything. But we will get into the Phillies this hour, this show as well. Well, our show. We're here for 4 hours. Let's go. Maybe I need more caffeine. Still to come. We will get into all the Eagles NFL news. Big NFL trade, I think, has direct impact on the Eagles offseason. We'll have our Phillies mailbag with Frank Klose coming up at 3 p.m. Adam Caplan joins us Football at Forward, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Knicks Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw is back at 4:30. Austin Krell, who covers the 76ers for Sports Illustrated, he'll join us at 5 o'clock. Sixers are back in action tonight. Is anybody going to watch? Tonight's a very interesting night if you're a sports fan. We're going to put a poll question a little bit, but I want to know what you guys are watching tonight. So you guys can be the first to chime in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Whitehorse RV Center in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at Whitehorse RV. What are you watching tonight? Sixers are on at 10. Tonight is the first 4 of the NCAA tournament. Also, the WBC final between the U.S. and Venezuela is at 8 o'clock. So are you going to be the person who says, I'm going to start my night with March Madness, flip over to watch USA versus Venezuela, and then afterward go to Sixers? Are you the person who says, you know what, Josh, I don't have as much free time as you think I do. I got to go to get things done. Then I'm going to sit down and watch the WBC at 8 o'clock. And then I'm going to bed because I don't need to watch the Sixers at 10 o'clock at night. You guys can let me know, 609-403-0973. It's a very, very interesting night for sports fans. And we will have the poll question up at 973 ESPN on the X platform shortly. But we are going to start with the Eagles conversation because another NFL trade happened today. And it's the kind of trade that definitely makes you wonder about the Eagles. So for those who didn't see all the details, here's the breakdown. The Miami Dolphins, who have been rumored to have had teams calling them about Jaylen Waddle, have finally traded him to the Denver Broncos. Broncos, a team that is frankly not in dire need of a wide receiver, still said, you know what? it's worth it for us to go out and get that guy. Jaylen Waddle is, on most teams, a bona fide number one receiver. Now he goes to a team that already has guys like Courtland Sutton and Troy Franklin on the team. So he's not the only really good receiver on the team, but he could arguably be the best one. And what makes it interesting is what the Broncos gave up to get him. A first-round pick, a third-round pick, and Denver and Miami will pick swap fourth-round picks in the draft. This year's draft, 2026. So let me get this straight. If Jaylen Waddle gets you a first and a third, and if DJ Moore gets you a second-round pick, why are teams balking at the idea that the Eagles want a first and second-round pick for A.J. Brown? Is it fair that I am now very, very suspicious of why teams are so willing to tell Howie Roseman thanks but no thanks, when Howie has been very clear that, hey, we are asking for this return because that is what Davante Adams got, and Davante Adams was older than A.J. Brown is now. Let me be very clear. I understand this is not an apples-to-apples comparison. But I think this entire NFL offseason has vindicated and justified Howie Roseman's asking price if the Eagles are to trade A.J. Brown. You are talking about a guy in A.J. Brown who has 4 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons. In the last 4 years with the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown has 32 receiving touchdowns. In that same stretch of time, Jaylen Waddle has 20 receiving touchdowns. Jaylen Waddle only has 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons in the last 4 years, and the last 2, he couldn't get to 1,000. And by the way, if you are wondering, A.J. Brown has been targeted at least 97 times every year in Philadelphia in that 4-year stretch. Jaylen Waddle, he's almost the same number. In fact, if you take their numbers and compare them, in the last 4 years, Jaylen Waddle targeted 404 times. A.J. Brown, 521 times. So Waddle has been targeted less, and he's averaging about 1,000 yards a season, if you put all 4 together. They're very similar production. It's just that A.J. Brown's on a much better team than Jaylen Waddle is. A.J. is a much better quarterback than Jaylen Waddle has had in the last 4 years. So why are we supposed to believe this lie that's been propagated by certain people out there on social media that A.J. Brown is not worth a first and second round pick, when Jaylen Waddle got a first and a third, and DJ Moore, who's lesser than both men, got a second? I think the reason why this farce has been propagated on social media is because I think there are people who are in the organizations that have called the Eagles that are really not happy that the Eagles are not willing to give out a bargain for A.J. Brown, because there is a perception that A.J. Brown is disgruntled and that the Eagles should want to get rid of him. So there's been a narrative put out there, that, in my opinion, by other NFL teams trying to create a scenario where A.J. Brown, the Eagles should just be like, you know what, give us whatever you want. It doesn't matter. We just want to get rid of him. And then Adam Schefter goes on Sportsmanlike this morning here on 97.3 ESPN and drops this spicy nugget, not a regular nugget, a spicy nugget about A.J. Brown's trade status.
Obviously, he would like to be moved, I think, in my mind. I mean, that goes back to last year. He was not. The math is such where they would have had a hard time agreeing to a trade and getting him traded before June 1st. Now, they did take care of the Dallas Goedert deal on Sunday, so that does give them a little bit more flexibility. But there's just not an obvious trade home right now, and they still would rather trade him post June 1. And to do that, that's illegal. Like, you can't say to somebody, okay, we have a trade, but we're not going to process it till after June 1.
So a couple of important nuggets there in that little bundle. One, he talks about the Dallas Goedert situation, about how Goedert signing his deal helps alleviate some of the cap concerns the Eagles have. So maybe there isn't as much anxiety or frustration or problems or whatever you want to call it when it comes to getting this deal done. The other side of the coin is he says, look, if you're going to move on from a guy after June 1st, you heard what he said. It is illegal to make an agreement before June 1st and then only execute it after June 1st. Why? Because in order for you to make a trade in the NFL, like most professional sports leagues, you have to submit paperwork to the NFL, and then once they rubber stamp it, deal goes through, physicals can happen. The NFL is trying their hardest to avoid any form of appearance of impropriety, collusion, etc. So the league is not going to want to have any of their teams, especially a team as high profile as the Eagles, be involved in such nefarious conversations. So if you're Philadelphia, you're looking at this situation and you're saying, hey, we want to trade A.J. Brown if it's for the right asking price. We're not going to trade him for the sake of trading him because, one, there's a huge cap hit before June 1st. And two, we look at Jaylen Waddle and DJ Moore and say the market has spoken. This is not Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni saying what A.J. Brown's trade value is. This is an A.J. Brown or another wide receiver saying this is his value. We literally have now not one, but two trades that give us tangible, real-world value of players. With the DJ Moore and now Jaylen Waddle trades, this vindicates and validates Howie Roseman's position to say, I am not trading this guy for less than. And the fact that there are teams around the league that are so anxious to leak to other NFL insiders, and again, am I accusing anyone of anything? But me, Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN, all of you listening out there to the show today, we all know how this business works. Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo, Jordan Schultz, Diana Rossini, Zach Berman, Adam Caplan, Jeff Mosher, anyone who covers or reports on the Eagles or the NFL in general. Throw in there Albert Breer, Jeff McClain, whoever you want to name. You want to do the names, whoever's on your Mount Rushmore of NFL insiders. They all get their information from someone. It's not a coincidence when certain information ends up on the Twitter feeds of any of these people. Where does that information come from? It always comes from one of three places. Someone in an NFL front office, a player's agent, or a player. There is a very, 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 very tiny percentage where it's like, if it's 33, 33, 33, the Eagles 99%, there's that 1% that it might come from a coach. But the majority of the time, NFL inside information comes from one of three places. So I feel pretty comfortable saying, based on the understanding of how things work, that the other NFL teams are sour that the Eagles are unwilling to budge. And all Howie Roseman is doing is he's sitting back, surveying the scene, and saying, hey, man, Jaylen Waddle's got a first and a third. DJ Moore got a second-round pick. The Ravens were willing to initially trade 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby. I don't think a first second's unreasonable. You can hang up on me all you want. You can be as disgruntled as you want. You can break off trade negotiations. Doesn't matter. The value is the value. You can't walk into a restaurant and tell the owner or the chef or the manager, hey, I want a hamburger, but I'm not paying what you're selling it for. You have to give me that burger because I am telling you how much that burger costs. Those people are going to laugh in your face. They're going to say, no. This is what it's listed on the menu. This is what it costs. Take it or leave it. You can't go and negotiate the value of a burger or the value of an item at, let's say you go to the supermarket, right? You can't tell the cashier, hey, I know it says on the shelf that it's $4.39, but I only want to pay $2.39. Let's negotiate. They're going to laugh at you. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous that these other NFL teams are trying to play this chicanery when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. We got a bunch of texts coming in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 69403-0970. I want to get to all of you guys in just a moment. I'll just finish up my point with this. My initial point. I got tons of points. I'm just kidding. The other side of it is this. If a team like the Denver Broncos, who already has what some people would consider an established group of receivers, is willing to add Jaylen Waddle to their team, this is the same conference in which the Chiefs just added a Super Bowl MVP to the running back room. The same conference where the Buffalo Bills just added new weapons for their superstar quarterback, Josh Allen. The same conference with a team like the Chargers, who had a solid year last year and still fired their offensive coordinator to bring in Mike McDaniel and to recalibrate this offseason. The same conference in which a team like the Steelers is reloading their roster. A team like the Ravens is going through a makeover of their roster. A team like the Bengals, who for some reason has decided 2026 is time to spend money on defense. If you're the Patriots, you should be nervous. Because if you don't get A.J. Brown, good luck competing when everyone else around you got better. And your big offseason move is Romeo Doubs. On the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973, Jeff in Ocean City says, I'm watching the NCAA games tonight. I'll tune in to the baseball. No Sixers for me tonight. He says, Joshua, glad to see you're wearing green, says Jeff in Ocean City. Yeah, Jeff, I don't have a lot of green. Honestly, it's not Eagles or Philly sports related. So, you know what? You're never going to see me wearing like a green shirt or something that's not Eagles related in some capacity. So this is the green you get. If you don't like the Eagles, tough luck. If you like the Eagles, go Birds. I like the Jeff strategy. He says, I'm going to start my night with the tournament games, and then I'll tune into the baseball when those games are done that I'm watching. And by the way, tonight's NCAA games are very interesting because tonight is not just the first four when it comes to the NCAA tournament, but tonight also is going to have an impact on a lot of people's brackets. Texas and NC State are the second game tonight. There's a lot of people who are looking at that 11-6 matchup and wondering if the team that I think that can cause an upset wins in the first four, that might change their brackets. By the way, you can hear all the first four games tonight on 97.3 ESPN and on our sister station, Rock 104.1. You can listen to both games as well on the 97.3 ESPN and the Rock 104.1 mobile app. So we got you covered here on 97.3 ESPN, thanks to the New Jersey Lottery. More text coming in at 69403-0973. Chris in Northfield chimes in and says, special edition happy hour Tuesday for St. Patty's Day. I got a pint of Guinness and a shot of Jameson with me at the pub. Well, listen, Chris, first of all, salute to you. I hope you have a great day. Please drink responsibly. Listen, today is an interesting day for any establishment that serves adult beverages because having St. Patrick's Day fall on a day that is not the Thursday or Friday of the NCAA tournament, or doesn't fall on a weekend like a Saturday or Sunday, that middle of the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, I always wonder how many people actually go out. Because, unless you're somebody who gets a lot of vacation time or you get to work from home, the rest of us who actually have to go into work had to make decisions. Do we get time off? Not me necessarily, because my schedule is all over the place. But if you're somebody who works a 9-to-5 job or a 7-to-4 or something like that, you look at it and say, do I take off for St. Patty's Day or the NCAA tournament? How many people are not going to go out today, but are going to go out Thursday and then flip that vice versa? How many people go out today, but don't go out Thursday? I always wonder about that kind of stuff. But Chris in Northfield, enjoy your Guinness and your shot of Jameson. I will say this, and maybe someone can fill me in, because I guess we're doing Happy Hour Tuesday for St. Patty's Day. Do people still do that drink where you got the Guinness and then you drop the Bailey's shot, the glass in the Guinness, and then you got to drink it all in one spot? You guys got to drop it in, drink it immediately. Is that still a thing? Because I remember that was a thing when I was younger. I say I'm so old, but I mean, if you go back 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago more so, but you get the point. 15, 20 years ago, that was a thing. You go out on St. Patty's Day or St. Patty's Day weekend, whether you're really out to drink or not, there's always that buddy of yours who goes out and gets the car bomb, right? And they get the Guinness, they get the Bailey, they hand it to you, you have no say in it, whether you're planning to drink that day or not, and they're like, hey man, cheers. And then you and your buddy try to see if you could both finish within a certain amount of time. Is that still a thing people do? Let me know. I might be showing my age at that point. Andrew Summers Point chimes in on the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. He says, teams don't want A.J. Brown's attitude infecting their team. That's why they're not willing to trade those draft picks, as Andrew in Summers' point. He goes on to say, P.S. Irish car bombs, yes! Exclamation points. So, okay, so Andrew Summers' point, he's kind of like me. He remembers the Irish car bomb days. To your point about A.J. Brown's attitude, here's the problem with A.J. Brown's attitude. I think that's been inflated. I think that there's a media-contrived perception of A.J. Brown's attitude. And as Jeff McClain previously explained on the Uncovering the Birds podcast, that perception is actually not a fair representation of A.J. Brown.
Kind of like the determining factor to some extent. Like, okay, do you want a player that's completely miserable all year? Right. And I like it's been framed that way here by some in Philadelphia, and that's just not my understanding of the situation. There's nuance there, right? So we should look at it through that lens. It's not like he's either unhappy or he's happy. I think he's like not 100% happy, and I think he's not 100% unhappy.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, Andrew Zimmer's point. That is, because A.J. Brown is kind of existing in this like purgatory where it's like he's not excited, he's not depressed, he's just kind of blah. And I think teams, you're right, they look at him and say, do I really want a guy who in a year or two doesn't want to be here? Think about it this way. If the Eagles, as Adam Schefter reported, wait until after June 1st to trade A.J. Brown, okay? Let's go down that rabbit hole just for a hot minute. You wait until after June 1st. Well, if you're the team acquiring A.J. Brown, okay? Let's just roll it into that theory. You have players under contract for the next few years. That means you're getting him under contract for 26, 27, 28, and technically 29, even though in 29 is actually option money. It's not guaranteed salary. So let's go over guaranteed money. Let's say you have guaranteed money on A.J. Brown for 2 years. Well, by the time you get to the third year, is your worry that he is going to become disinterested? Or are teams saying, this guy's 29 years old. He only has 2 more good years left. Let's just acquire him because basically after 2 years, we can get rid of him with almost no dead cap money. All right, we have more of your text coming up on the other side. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Coming up, we'll get more of your text to the Whitehorse RV text board. Your reactions to the state of the NFL, the A.J. Brown situation, and what are you watching tonight? USA versus Venezuela, WBC, First Four, NCAA tournament, Sixers tonight at 10 o'clock. Let me know. Join the conversation, 609-403-0973. Don't forget, we are streaming live on YouTube and X. Just follow 973 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on St. Paddy's Day, 973 ESPN.
You're not down with that. We got 2 words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to the Whitehorse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0970. Don't forget, your next opportunity is to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway. Yes, you can still qualify. You want to go to Baltimore? Phillies, Camden Yards this summer? We'll listen for that sounder coming up each hour today on the Sports Bash. Plenty of opportunities for you still to qualify. If you are still trying to win the trip, listen for the sounder. When it goes off, we'll tell you when to call. And you can qualify for a trip to the Phillies game in Baltimore this summer. And then when you qualify, you must be present at the Anchorage in Summers Point on Thursday, March 26th, Phillies opening day, when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live here on 97.3 ESPN. The Anchorage in Summers Point, Thursday, March 26th. And if you don't qualify for the contest, you can still come out to the Anchorage Summers Point to watch the Phillies opening day and your opportunity to win prizes as well. But again, to win anything, you must be present to win Thursday, March 26th at the Anchorage in Summers Point. Let's get back to the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Mike in the Villas says, Jaylen Waddle is not a distraction. He doesn't demand the ball and then drop it like A.J. Brown does. Another offensive coordinator that Brown will negatively impact play calling is how teams view him, is what Mike from the Villa says. Well, a couple things. One, Jaylen Waddle might not be a distraction, but Jaylen Waddle has had his own set of drop issues in past years. And, you know, it's hard to always gauge this based on guys' literal drop numbers, because I've noticed that, you know, for A.J. Brown, he'll drop a pass, but then, like, the stat person will not actually, like, you know, measure it as a drop. And the same thing happens to Waddle. Waddle sometimes drops passes, and it doesn't always list as drop, but A.J. Brown actually has a higher percentage of reception to target ratio than Jaylen Waddle does. If you just go off of the last couple of years, just to use that as an example, okay? I don't want to go too down this rabbit hole, but I think it's fair to bring up because Mike in the Villas, your point about the distraction thing is 100% correct. I don't think that is there is nothing invalid about that one bit. But I think the catch situation is interesting because Jaylen Waddle last year caught 64% of the passes thrown to him. A.J. Brown caught 64.5% of the passes thrown to him. The year before, when the Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl, A.J. Brown caught 69.1% of the passes thrown to him. Jaylen Waddle that year caught 69.9% of the passes thrown to him. As Mike Goldberg used to say for the UFC fights, they're virtually identical. I think that there's a perception that A.J. Brown drops passes and that other people don't. And the problem is that there's a lot of guys who drop passes in today's NFL. There's very few guys in today. It's like the problem with basketball, right? The fundamental issues of basketball. There's so few legitimately fundamental basketball players. There's also so very few fundamental football players. It's not like the league has a ton of guys like Larry Fitzgerald and Calvin Johnson and Chris Carter anymore. So I think that the drop thing is unfair because Waddle has his own history of drops. And if both guys are catching the ball around the same rate, Mike in the Villas, I don't think the drop ball issue is a problem. And Frank, I would say that the Jaylen Waddle drops is probably part of the reason why people let him not, maybe he's even want to trade for him in the past, right? But it seems like on the Broncos, when there's multiple receivers and Waddle doesn't have to be a number one receiver, it's okay. Now, the affecting the play calling thing, I still go back to how much, and again, Mike and the Villas, you and I might not have the answer to this, but how much of the A.J. Brown issues and the play calling and all that stuff, how much of that is the coach? How much is that the players? Like, I don't know exactly where that line gets drawn, because I have heard people who know more football than I do. You know, your Kurt Warners, your Brian Baldingers, your Dan Orlovskis, your Nick Foles, etc. They have all pointed out that at times the Eagles would run an offense that did not utilize the whole field. That Hurts would basically be told, only throw to this side of the field, and that the other guys in the offense were almost like decoys. And that sometimes when Jalen Hurts would throw the ball to A.J. Brown, he wasn't expecting the ball because he was maybe the third or fourth option on a play. So is that Brown dropping the ball? Is that Brown not being dialed in? Is that bad play calling? Is that bad coaching? Is that bad communication? I don't know. I think it's, if you want to say it's all the above, that's fine. A.J. Brown has demonstrated, though, that he can be a key part of a winning organization. In his 4 years in Philadelphia, the Eagles reached the Super Bowl twice. They reached the postseason all 4 years. So, Brown may be a distraction. He may affect play calling at times. But I think, Mike from the Villas, most teams would rather have A.J. Brown at wide receiver than DJ Moore. They'd rather have A.J. Brown, if all things were equal, than, let's say, Drake London. How many receivers do you think teams would rather have over A.J. Brown? If money was not an obstacle, if draft picks were not an obstacle, if all you had to factor in was ability, personality, on the field success. There's what, maybe 5 receivers at best you'd rather have over A.J. Brown? I think, Mike from the Villas, that's what I'm looking at it as. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am not factoring in some of the other elements. And guess what? I have been as critical, if not more critical, of A.J. Brown than anyone else here on 97.3 ESPN in the last few years. Steve from Ventnor chimes in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. He says Waddle is going to be a good fit with the Broncos. It's a hefty price, but Denver identified a player that is a good fit for them. That's the price of doing business. Though, if the Eagles were to take a wide receiver in the first round, it'd be pretty telling, in my opinion, about the future of A.J. Brown. Listen, a couple things there. One, you're right. It is a bit of a hefty price because you're trading for a guy in Waddle who has had some drop issues, a guy in Jaylen Waddle who never elevated an offense. Jaylen Waddle was never the guy who made Miami's offense go. No, that was Tyreek Hill. That was Mike McDaniel's play calling. It wasn't like Miami went from being like, when A.J. Brown came to Philadelphia, he elevated the offense. Jaylen Waddle is going to be a good fit, as Steve said Stephen Ventnor said in Denver. But he's going to be a good fit because he's not going to be asked to be the end-all, be-all. And for a guy who, if I was to rank the top 10 receivers in the NFL, I don't think Waddle makes that list. So you gave up a first and a third-round pick for a guy who's not even a top 10 receiver. Steve, you're right. It is a hefty price that they gave up. More text coming in, 609-403-0973. Text didn't leave their name and says, I'm 47. I'm still doing those car bombs, Josh. LOL. All right, so I don't feel as bad. Yeah. I told you guys, I remember when I was younger, it would just be like someone would just walk up to you and be like, hey, drink this. And you didn't really have an option, right? It was kind of more like you have to do this because it's St. Patrick's Day, or you have to do this because St. Patrick's Day just passed or it's coming up. Shaner in EHC chimes in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0970. He says, I'm watching WBC tonight. That matchup the other night was great, and this isn't far behind it. A 1 and a 3. So Howie is smart, he says. We need more than a 1 and a 3 for A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown has less of an injury history, and so A.J. Brown has less injury history, more of a physical presence, or am I wrong about comparing him with Jaylen Waddle? He goes, 76ers equally far behind. Who cares anymore? Waddle is a less of an impact. He definitely is a less of a physical presence on the field. So, yes, Howie is smart. Howie is asking for a first and a second for a guy who is a better receiver, a better presence, a better player, a better everything. The only negative against him is the perception, as Jeff McClain called it, that A.J. Brown is a problem, when he's really not. I think the biggest issue with A.J. Brown is not that A.J. Brown's problem, is how teams handled A.J. Brown. I think the Eagles were very lenient with A.J. because I think that people felt like he meant well and he was a great locker room guy and he was a good person to be around. So it was a little easier to deal with the bad attitude, we'll call it. So, yes, Howie is right to ask for a first second. Now, you mentioned WBC. You're right. The WBC is fascinating because I think most people thought it was going to be, U.S. versus Japan or Dominican Republic, but it ended up being Venezuela. And this Venezuela team is not even as good of a Venezuelan team could be because of the whole issue with visas. For those who don't know, there were a bunch of Venezuelan players who could not get travel clearance to participate in the WBC. They only had travel clearance to play Major League Baseball. They didn't have travel clearance to play in WBC. Now, I'm sure there's somebody who is very dialed into the legalities of that can explain it better than I can, but my point is that there's a bunch of players who could have been in WBC who were not. And this is a Venezuelan team that basically outside of two pitchers do not have a good pitching staff. Outside of Angel Suarez and I guess the second best pitcher would be Jonathan Diaz. They got Eduardo Rodriguez pitching tonight. He's a so-so pitcher. They don't really have great pitching. It's their hitting that has gotten them to this point. When you guys... when Venezuela has both Contreras brothers, they got Salvador Perez, they got Mike Gill, who, by the way, is a very underrated player coming out of Kansas City. They have hitters, sluggers like Eugenio Suarez and Ronald Acuna. They got a bunch of sluggers. They got a bunch of dudes. And they arguably have probably the one of the most star-studded coaching staffs in the whole tournament, right? I mean, your hitting coach is Miguel Cabrera, right? I mean, your pitching coach is Johan Santana. You got an all-star team in the coaching staff by itself. So for me, I think Venezuela is a fascinating matchup for the U.S. tonight because it's all hitting and no pitching. By the way, thanks, Shaner, for having you and your wife will have a car bomb for me. Appreciate it. Salute. Paul from Millville chimes in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Says, Josh, I'm watching WBC final tonight. It's not even a discussion, in my opinion. The Sixers are cooked, and I'd rather watch a playoff atmosphere baseball team than the Sixers. He says the four teams in the basketball tournament probably shouldn't even be there. He says, I will say as a guy who has been saying Nola's cooked for the past 3 years, I was just hoping we get Nola. We saw last night again that star-studded Venezuela lineup. Yeah, he pitched amazing. And Paul from Millville, my only concern is, did Nola waste like his best outings in March? Like, I hate putting it that way, but it's like, I remember a couple of years ago when like Trey Turner pitched, when he played very well in the WBC, then he came to the Phillies and he was like cooked. Excuse me. We were all excited that you looked at Trey Turner a couple of years ago and you're like, this guy's amazing. He's playing great at WBC. And he comes to Philadelphia, he does nothing. That's my only concern with Nola is, did Nola pitch so well in the WBC that now he's going to come and be mediocre for us? Or I could be wrong. Maybe the WBC gives him confidence that he's still got it, right? That, maybe he got his groove back, and now he's going to come in here and just light the league up. Because the one thing about Aaron Nola that I think gets overlooked, Paul, in Millville, is, as Mike Gill calls it, the Nola coaster has been in full effect his entire 11 or 12 years here in Philadelphia, however long it's been. This is a guy who has actually pitched so well that just in the last 5 seasons, the last 6 seasons, 3 of those 6 years, he has been a Cy Young Award finalist. 2020, 2022, 2024, he was getting voted for the Cy Young. So, is this just an every other year thing that Aaron Nola pitches well? In even years, he pitches well. So that means this year, he should pitch well, right? Maybe I'm reaching. Thanks, Paul from Millville, for chiming in. All right, more text still to come here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, Philly, from Mike Gill, 973 ESPN FM, the 973 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. Still to come, your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway contest. You can go to Baltimore, Camden Yards, this summer. And our Phillies mailbag with Frank Klose coming up in about 10 minutes from now. All that and more still to come. Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill on 973 ESPN FM, 973 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN.
Get ready for the madness. March Madness on 97.3 ESPN.
Broadly's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. The name you know, the service you trust.
Broadly's has you covered in every season. Join their family comfort plan for priority service, annual tune-ups, and extra repair savings. For a limited time, take advantage of $500 off a full system replacement, plus up to $2,650 in utility rebates. Call 609-390-3907 or visit broadleys.net.
The name you know, the service you trust.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
on 97.3 ESPN.
There it is. There's the sounder. What are you guys waiting for? Call 609-573-3776. If you don't get in the first time, remember, it's caller number 7 who gets in. Got to keep hitting that 609-573-3776 if you want to go to a Phillies game at Camden Yards this summer. Yes, you win the trip. And then when you win the trip, you must be present at the Anchorage in Summers Point when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live for Phillies opening day. You could be a qualifier if you call 609-573-3776. Phillies Baltimore trip. You will be in. Coming up, our Phillies mailbag conversation with Frank Klose from 97.3 ESPN.com joins us next here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN.
ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Congratulations to our latest qualifiers. Anthony and Brigantine, Robert and Woodbine, you are in for the Phillies trip giveaway contest. Don't forget, you must be present at the Anchorage and Summers Point Phillies opening day Thursday, March 26. Of course, you could be there anyway just to hang out, watch the Phillies game, hang out with the Sports Bash, Mike Gill, and you can win other prizes too. But you must be present. You can't win anything unless you're at the Anchorage Summers Point. Thursday, March 26th. We'll have another opportunity for you to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway in about 50 minutes from now here on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of the Phils, time right now to talk with Frank Klose, our Phillies insider with the mailbag at 97.3 ESPN.com. He joins us each and every week as Phillies are winning 2-0, but as we know, winning games, Frank, in spring training has zero consequence on the regular season. So I'm not too excited or depressed about them having a 2-0 lead. Although I do find it interesting that Bohm was hitting as a DH today. How you doing, Frank?
I'm well. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing good. So before we get into the mailbag, how zeroed in are you on the WBC tonight?
Well, it's one of the big questions in the mailbag, actually. But you know what? I am in. I wasn't always throughout the course of this tournament, but I'm in. I'm really interested to see what happens. You know, I must admit, I kind of thought the Dominican team was going to be the one that would take this championship, but so I thought that was kind of like the big game the other night. But certainly, yeah, it's really neat to see the Phillies in these new teams. I know it's a great point of pride for a lot of players to wear their country's name on their chest for the first time. You know, so I think there's a lot in it for Team Venezuela tonight to try to win this. So I think that's almost an edge that they have because this is their real opportunity to play for their country, whereas a lot of Team USA, they make millions of dollars and play at their country all the time. So, but it's going to be a tough one tonight.
It absolutely is. And you mentioned the mailbag. Let's get into it because I think the biggest question in the mailbag is the question that Paul from Millville had in the last hour, Frank. And also Jason chimed in on the Phillies mailbag and asked a similar question. Is the Aaron Nola we saw in the WBC a sign of what's coming in 2026? Frank, it's an interesting question because, and read into this what you will, Nola's good every other year, right? You know, in even number years, he ends up getting votes for the Cy Young. And in odd number years, he ends up being very rough to watch. So is the WBC plus an even number year a good sign for Aaron Nola?
I'm of the opinion that this is a really good sign. Not just because of the World Baseball Classic, but also because of how he looked before he headed to the World Baseball Classic. Now, if you follow a traditional spring training trajectory, usually you come in your first game, you pitch a couple innings, then maybe you go to 3. And he was right in the spot where he was about to pitch 4 to 5 for the Phillies. And that's what he did for Team Italy. He pitched 5 innings his first one, and then he went 4 innings in the second one, and he just allowed that one earned run over both games. It was that solo home run in the 4th inning. I know there were some people that out there that were joking that he always seems to give up a home run during the wrap 4th inning, but some related jokes around that, Josh. But really, I thought he looked really, really, really good on the back of having his velocity up before he left. So I think this is a really, really good sign. I think when he got his pitches in at Philly spring training in Clearwater. Seeing him pitch with that better velocity, he looked really good. But then, you know what? Think about the competition he had during this tournament. That was arguably much better competition than he would have had back in Clearwater. So when you add those two things up, I think it's going to work out really well for Aaron Nola. He's very, very well conditioned from an offseason of preparation. And I think that he is in really, really good physical shape, and I'm feeling really good about him. I mean, to be honest with you, Josh, at the end of last year, we had that one playoff start where they eked through a couple innings with him, but, you really didn't know what you had because that was the first season of his career that he spent significant time on the injured list, too. So I think he looks great. I mean, I think you got to be thinking really highly of this Phillies rotation right now because Aaron Nola seems to be back.
Well, sticking with the WBC topic on the Phillies mailbag over at 973ESP.com, Drew wants to know, is it good for baseball or a negative? And I always find these kind of questions interesting, Frank, because, if it was a real negative, I feel like the players wouldn't do it, right? Like if it was really like the worst thing in the world, I think the players would just be like, we are not getting involved in this. But for whatever reason, whether people like it or not, in most sports, baseball, hockey, basketball, these athletes like to represent their countries.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And really the impetus for having a World Baseball Classic was the end of baseball in the Summer Olympics. And so this actually came from a request from the Players Association. Hey, what can we do to have an international baseball tournament again? And this is what they came up with. And it started in 2006, did it again in 2009, and then they had 2013 and 17. And they've kind of settled into every 3 years. Now, of course, 2020 didn't happen thanks to the pandemic. And so they really got back onto that 3-year schedule. And so, I think there's real momentum here. And I think I think this is something which has sparked a lot of interest. And it's not just me thinking it. I read an article on Yahoo Sports. Viewership is up 183% from 2023. So if you look at the numbers tonight, it's a championship. It'll be interesting to see the ratings on that. But so far, the numbers in terms of people who are interested in this are way, way up. And, I think that there's now, because of the success, a reason to say, all right, is there a better way or a more prominent way even that you can do this? Now, I'm going to make a shameless plug and say last week on my Run It Back podcast, I mentioned that they should do this in the middle of the season. And then the next day, Jason Stark, the legendary baseball writer for The Athletic, he suggested that, hey, you build this out of the All-Star break and you do all these wonderful things all at once, and it becomes a centerpiece of the baseball season. So I think there's a lot of momentum here, and this is really, really good for the game because, right now we don't even hear about the negatives. So a few years ago, and I actually, for some of my sports classes, I actually gave an assignment on this once because Edwin Diaz famously got hurt at the beginning of 2023 in that World Baseball Classic, and the Mets didn't have their closer their whole season. So I think that kind of muddied the waters a little bit because a star player got hurt, and they said, well, it wasn't a real game, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? I don't think that you can live in fear like that, right? Injuries are going to happen. They happen in spring training. They happen in the regular season. They happen in the postseason. I mean, Seiya Suzuki, we're waiting to see what happened to him and have after getting injured on Sunday. I know the Cubs are checking him out. But I think that if you're well prepared, if you take the Aaron Nola approach and condition your body so that you're ready for this, I don't think there's a whole lot of risk other than the dumb luck, I guess, that might come with playing sports. But these ratings are looking great. I think people are interested that originally said they weren't interested. I myself might be included in some of that, but it's but I ended up watching it a lot more, Josh, than I expected to this spring.
Well, I do think that, and it's not directly baseball related, but I think something that helped was the U.S. in the Olympics with hockey. I think that kind of like rolling into the WBC and the WBC players kind of using that hype probably helped a little bit when it comes to at least U.S. viewership. I don't know how that impacted like international viewership, obviously, but I do think that might have helped a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, this was a pretty popular Olympic Games, and we're just on the tail end of it, right? So I think that the timing works out pretty well, that people are kind of in that international competition mindset. So I think this has been a great thing for baseball. I think a lot of people are interested and really looking forward to seeing where this goes, because I think with the growth you saw this year, there's room for much, much more in the future.
Frank Klose joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Frank Klose's mailbag is each week over at 97.3ESPN.com. Over on the mailbag, Frank, one of the other questions that came in from Kevin, he asks, what is the Phillies' biggest weak spot? And I think this is an interesting question because I don't know if there is an obvious answer to this. I feel like some of this kind of falls into the beauty in the eye of the beholder, or shall I say, ugliness in the eye of the beholder situation.
Well, I usually break down a roster into 4 parts, right? You have your starting lineup in the main offense, you have the bench, you have the starting rotation, and you have the bullpen, right? And I think if you were looking at those categories individually, as I just said, with Aaron Nola looking like he's looking, even with Zach Wheeler not there right away, but on the mend, and you saw Taijuan Walker pitch pretty well in the World Baseball Classic too. So I think their starting rotation, that's looking really, really good. Andrew Painter looks good, so I think they can hold down the fort just fine before Zach Wheeler gets back. So I think that's really strong. The bullpen, I think, is still really strong. There are 5 really strong relievers on this roster. Joan Duran, you have Jose Alvarado, Brad Keller, Tanner Banks, and Orion Kerkering, who, by the way, you haven't seen him pitch yet this year because he dealt with a little injury. He was supposed to pitch today in a minor league game. I haven't heard the results of that just yet, but you have 5 relievers you can really count on. And then beyond that, you have a few roster spots. One of them is going to be Taijuan Walker probably whenever Zach Wheeler gets back. And then a couple other guys, like, the low leverage situations. I think their bullpen is very, very strong. So then you get to the the starting lineup. I mean, to me, they're going to score a ton of runs, just like they usually do. The only one big question you really have there is that, I feel like we talk about this all the time, Josh, is that number 4 spot in the batting order, right? Who is going to be that right-handed bat that protects the 2 big lefties? And that's the only real question I have. So I suppose if we're talking about a weak spot on the roster, I mean, I think it's more about lineup construction, because in a normal world, Alec Boehm is a very nice piece on your roster. But if he's miscast as the cleanup hitter, well, then you're not really getting out of him what he ideally is suited for. So I think that this is going to be something to look at. You're going to be checking out the trade market more than ever, perhaps this July, because I think that's the one thing they're going to need, provided there are no injuries. And the bench, the last thing I had there, that's pretty good too. I mean, Edmundo Sosa does a really nice job. He'll play a lot against lefties and get some key at bats later in the game. And I think that Dylan Moore is going to be the last man on, the guy that can play a million positions and doesn't need to hit a whole lot. And then beyond that, Otto Kemp is your platoon outfield. I think this is a pretty good looking roster right now. If I'm trying my best to be objective, I know it felt like the world was falling that they didn't get Bo Bichette, but I think they're very, very well rounded. Really interesting to see what they do with that 4th spot in the batting order. I suppose that's a weak spot. I mean, they could get that from Adolis Garcia. We'll see what happens with that, if he can sort of take charge and take that position. But there's still a trade deadline, so I think the Phillies are in a good spot. So to me, it's just not so much on a one-on-one basis, but just the lineup construction is just a little bit off kilter there in the middle.
It's interesting, Frank, because I think objectively we all can agree that the roster this year is better than it was last year. But the vibe feels like people are so frustrated that they didn't do enough to turn over the roster, that there's a perception that people want more, right? People wanted more from Dombrowski and company's offseason than Brad Keller, Adolis Garcia. People I don't think people appreciate that Crawford and Painter are part of the changeover as well.
Yeah, they are. And I think there's still some question marks with them, right? I mean, we don't know exactly how things are going to work out for a ground ball hitter like Justin Crawford. Is he going to get on base that much less because he's got some major league defenses out there? I did watch him, forget which day this weekend, maybe it was Saturday in Tampa, where, he basically tried to just beat out a little tapper and he just didn't win the battle, right? So it's, I think he's going to have to adjust to the major league some, but shows a lot of tools, And Andrew Painter, I mean, he just seems like he's one of the starters that belongs for the most part. From my perspective, did he have like a lights out spring training? I think that's sometimes the expectation people put on a top prospect like that. You're not going to get that, but I mean, there's nothing that made you bat an eye and say, "Oh gosh, this guy doesn't belong in the major league rotation." He just seems like he belongs, and he's They're going to issue him a New Jersey number. They're going to issue Crawford a New Jersey number, maybe his cousin's old number 2. So if you have those J.P. Crawford jerseys in your closet, you might get more use out of it. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's I think they look like they're ready to belong, and really nice pieces to add to this roster.
We got a text on the text board for the mailbag, Frank, from Steven Ventnor. He wants to know who loses their 40-man roster spot for Justin Crawford, and then who else could lose their roster spot if Brian De La Cruz or Dylan Moore make the roster. That's an interesting question, Frank, because those are all non-roster invitees, and they're not on the 40-man right now.
Well, you may have heard Johan Rojas just did them a favor and opened up one roster spot for them.
We're calling it a favor? Is that what we're saying now?
Yeah, I don't know what else to call it. But so Rojas' spot is going to be one of them, and then Garrett Stubbs is not going to make this team as a catcher, in my opinion. So they're going to have to remove him from his 40-man spot. He did sign what they call a split contract, which means he'll get paid a certain amount if he made the major league team, but he'll get on the relative basis, a nicer salary at AAA if he accepts the assignment to AAA. I think he's going to accept the assignment to AAA. Honestly, Rene Pinto is the number 3 catcher in my opinion too. So Pinto, you may have seen him play in some spring training games. The Phillies have plenty of depth. I think Stubbs will be. They're going to try to outright him, as they would say, to the minor leagues. That means another team can claim him. I can see him going unclaimed and taking that split contract where he can go to AAA and make a much better salary than most of AAA and kind of serve as a pseudo coach down there. But you know what? The Phillies, and if someone claims him, I think Rene Pinto is a fine option. Pinto, of course, had some major league experience with the Tampa Bay Rays, so I think that they're fine in terms of catching depth in losing Stubbs. So Stubbs is not going to be on this 40-man roster, I think, come the end of next week.
Yeah, it's just such a weird situation when you have to do all this roster shuffling, right? There's a lot of, and it's an inexact science is a fair way to describe it, right, Frank?
It really, really is. And, there's always someone you kind of feel is the next guy to go. And then every once in a while it surprises you, I mean, someone said to me, someone in the Phillies organization, they were just asking my opinion. Like, oh, is Nolan Hoffman, for example, a big prospect? And they were kind of asking the question because they wanted to make sure they had enough jerseys in the clubhouse for him, So like, Nolan Hoffman is probably somebody who's on the bubble, for example. So I think you kind of always have in mind some that are on the bubble, and then you kind of go from there. But there's always an unexpected change of status for somebody. Somebody might get suspended for PEDs, or somebody gets hurt. It has to go in the 40-man. The 60-day and removed from the 40-man. So you usually tend to have some options, but I don't think the Phillies are in a position where they have to make some tough calls. But Pedro Leon, who they optioned to AAA, he is on the 40-man roster. They could DFA him. Someone might pick him up. I don't know, but they had the minor league option available. Chase Sugart's someone on the roster bubble. Zach Pop. I mean, there's a lot of players here that are not necessarily going to make the team, where they might end up departing the organization.
By the way, the lineup is out for WBC tonight. Harper still in the 2-hole, Schwarber in the 4. More of a selfish question by me, Frank. Do you think the Phillies glean anything from the Harper Schwarber batting 2 and 4 in the WBC lineup, or do they view the WBC as that's that alien entity over there? We're regular baseball here.
Well, I guess that the issue still remains what I just said. They don't really have that right-handed bat to figure out how to balance it. I mean, Harper even mentioned how great it is to have Aaron Judge hitting behind him, I mean, I don't know if that was a shot at the Phillies organization or not.
But I'm sorry. Harper's just turning into a guy. Just need to shut up. Like, this dude, stop taking shots at everybody. It's just not necessary, dude. Just go out there and play baseball.
Yeah, you're not gonna find a hitter as good as Aaron Judge to hit behind you.
Exactly.
So that could have been what he meant, right? I mean, because Aaron Judge is probably the premier right-handed hitter in all of Major League Baseball.
He's one of one.
Yeah, he's one of one. But I think that could be they could be onto something there. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's been getting a lot of hits. I mean, even though he's in the 4 spot, but I like Schwarber in a spot where he can drive some runs in, and certainly with that lineup, they're in a position that they could. And I could even see them, moving the 3 of them up and having Witt not lead off. But let's face it though, they have almost a present day dream team in terms of MLB players.
He's Frank Klose. Give him a follow on the X platform at Frank Klose with a K. Of course, his Phillies mailbag each and every week at 973ESPN.com. And he joins the Sports Bash every week to review that mailbag. Frank, good news is Adolis Garcia went 4 for 4 today.
Yeah, you know what? Even if it's a spring training game, you like to see that, right? Because it shows he's making contact, he's seeing the ball well. His average up to 300 for the spring. So I know anybody that was like, oh, he's only hitting 220. Well, guess what? Now he's hitting 300. So again,
he's getting hot at the right time.
You can't read too much into this, but you just want to get out of them that they're seeing the ball well, they're swinging the bat well, and when you look at this lineup up and down, Trey Turner's always been a slow starter. Brandon Marsh has a low average, but I think once the season hits, they're going to be their old selves.
Absolutely. Frank, appreciate you jumping on today.
Always good to talk to you, Josh.
Josh Hennig, Philly for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And at 3 o'clock hour, the Bash is being brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadleys is your trusted source for heating and plumbing service and installation for generations. Call them at 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleys.net. And maybe, just maybe, you need to make sure that your system is all set and ready to go with all the crazy weather changes and everything going on with the weather right now. Broadleys is probably going to need to maybe do a system checkup for you, right? You want to make sure that your air system is ready to go when it gets boiling hot outside. Yes, Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning is what you want to call 609-390-3907. Also at broadleys.net. All right, we'll get back to the text board on the other side. The Whitehorse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. Jim in Williamstown, your text and more coming up next on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. We are streaming live on YouTube and X. Just follow 973 ESPN.
March Madness is coming.
Set midcourt, he shoots it immediately, and he makes it in! He makes it in!
To 97.3.
What a three, and it's down the hatch!
Get ready for the madness.
Wilson all alone, baseline 3.
March Madness on 97.3 ESPN.
Xfinity Tech Support, Matthew speaking.
Hi, I live in a pretty remote place, like Jurassic Park remote. No!
Wow.
Will Xfinity Mobile work out here?
Yep, the combination of reliable Wi-Fi and 5G makes it so that you can stay connected in all kinds of places. Plus, you get access to ultra-fast speeds and coverage, whether you're poolside or out live streaming with a T-Rex.
Hold still, you're about to go viral.
Welcome to a new era of Wi-Fi boosted mobile. Cut your mobile bill in half with 2 lines of unlimited. Learn more at xfinitymobile.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Watch Jurassic Park with Xfinity. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet required. Savings comparison based on promotional rate for 2 lines of Xfinity Mobile Unlimited versus 2 lines of T-Mobile Experience More, Verizon Unlimited Plus, and AT&T Starter as of February 10th, 2026. Taxes, fees, extra.
With GMF financing, qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
Don't buy a car anywhere until you check out Bennett Chevy's March Markdown prices,
where you can save up to 20% on new vehicles with Bennett's true GM supplier employee pricing.
Yes, you pay what our employees pay. Plus, you keep all the rebates, saving you up to 20%.
And you can save even more with available 0% financing. Who's gonna give you an offer like this?
Nobody, that's who.
Hey, if you think that's a great offer and you're looking for pre-owned, then Bennett's going to make you an offer you can't refuse, giving you a minimum $10,000 for your trade no matter its condition. Just as long as you can get it here, you'll get a minimum 10 grand towards any pre-owned on the lot. Imagine how much more Bennett's paying for good trades. And at Bennett Chevy, there's never any pressure or negotiating because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction. Together, let's drive. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
.330 on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling from Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN. Mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. I see some messages coming in on the YouTube stream at 973 ESPN. Text board is open as well at 609-403-0973. We got a lot of stuff to catch up on for the messages that were a little bit earlier in the show. We'll get to those here. Don't forget, coming up still, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan is here today, NFL Insider joining us. Knicks Nuggets still to come as well at 4:30, and Sports Illustrated Sixers reporter Austin Krell will touch on the Sixers with us at 5 p.m. Our poll question is up at 973 ESPN. We've been asking you throughout the day, what are you watching tonight? Well, so far, The poll results are overwhelming. I gave you 4 options, okay? I said, are you going to watch the USA and WBC final? You're going to watch the NCAA first 4? Are you going to watch college basketball and then watch the WBC? Or are you going to watch the Sixers at 10 o'clock? Well, the poll results so far are overwhelming. If we go based on our listeners, whether it's on X at 973 ESPN or if it's on our text board at 609-403-0973, it's fair to say that nobody is watching the Sixers tonight. Like, think about how crazy. Nobody wants to watch the Sixers tonight. Nobody. Nada. Nobody cares. There's nobody out there who's like, yeah, I want to watch the Sixers tonight. No. Everyone is either watching the USA and the WBC final or they're watching the first 4. In fact, 86% of you are going to watch the USA and the WBC final, and the other 14% of you are going to watch the college basketball. Wild. I mean, you all are just telling the Sixers to take a long walk on a short pier. Boy, oh boy. Keep voting at 973 ESPN. And the poll question, you can leave your comments on the text board as well at 609-403-0973. On the aforementioned Wayhorse RV text board, Jim in Williamstown says, I agree with you. I think the Eagles would trade A.J. Brown after June 1st. They can get a first in next year's draft. Yeah, I think that is probably the direction they're going to go in. Again, Adam Schefter reporting that that's probably what's going to happen. I do find Alex in the Villas' text interesting at 609-403-0973. Alex says, can we please stop trying to trade AJ? Says Alex in the Villas. Well, Alex, I don't know where you're getting your information from, but I'm not trying to trade AJ Brown. Teams around the NFL are calling the Eagles to trade for AJ Brown. This is not some fabricated thing made up by people on the radio or on social media. Every reputable NFL reporter has put out there that teams are calling to trade for A.J. Brown. And then the Eagles are, while on the phone, saying, this is what we want in return for A.J. Brown. And then those teams are saying, we don't want to trade a first and second round pick for A.J. Brown. And then the Eagles have been saying, then call us back when you're willing to negotiate. So, Alex, there's no trying to trade A.J. Brown. We are not trying to get rid of him. I, Mike Gill, Nick Earnshaw, Billy Schweim, none of us are trying to negotiate or instigate a trade. None of the Eagle fans are banging on Howie Roseman's door at the whatever they call it, was it Thomas Jefferson Medical or whatever it is now, center. No one's going to the Eagles facility and saying, trade A.J. Brown with pickets. You know, there's no protest going on outside, Alex. Teams are calling to trade for A.J. Brown. So you can tell me, can we stop trying to trade A.J. Brown all you want? But the reality is that I have no say over it. I am just delivering information to all of you on 97.3 ESPN, Alex. This is not a fabricated scenario of let's have fun and create trades, okay? I'm sorry to disappoint you, Alex. But unless we get the training camp and nobody... And okay, if we get the training camp and the Eagles officially say we're going to stop taking phone calls, we're not going to listen to anybody calling for A.J. Brown, he is an Eagle, then until then, we will keep bringing up when it is necessary that the Eagles could or would or will be trading A.J. Brown. There are, in fact, some people who cover the Eagles in the NFL, Alex and the Phillies, who say that A.J. Brown will be traded. It just will be after June 1st. Again, this is what Adam Schefter, not Josh Hennig, Adam Schefter said this morning on Unsportsmanlike, right here on 97.3 ESPN.
Obviously, he would like to be moved, I think, in my mind. I mean, that goes back to last year. He was not. The math is such where they would have had a hard time agreeing to a trade and getting him traded before June 1st. Now, they did take care of the Dallas Goedert deal on Sunday, so that does give them a little bit more flexibility. But there's just not an obvious trade home right now, and they still would rather trade him post June 1. And to do that, that's illegal. Like, you can't say to somebody, okay, we have a trade, but we're not going to process it till after June 1.
Again, that is Adam Schefter. I don't know, maybe Alex in the Villas has been hanging out with the guy who tried to fight with me at the Mike Seafood One Walk for Autism last month. Those didn't hear. So I was broadcasting Hanging with Hennig at the Mike Seafood One Walk for Autism out there every year supporting a great cause. You know, any day you could do something for children with disabilities is a good day, right? This dude wanted to argue with me because he claimed that I and people like me ran Nick Castellanos out of town. So maybe Alex in the Villas is hanging out with that guy. It's all my fault. It's my fault Nick Castellanos isn't here. It's my fault A.J. Brown isn't here. It's okay. I'll be the bad guy. I'll be your Tony Montana. Listen, I always tell the truth even when I lie. You never meet a bad guy like this again. I'll be the bad guy. Yeah. When A.J. Brown gets traded, it's all my fault. Put it on my tab. We'll put it on the check mark list next to everything else. Terry in Galloway chimes in on the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0970. By the way, White Horse RV Center is in Galloway and Williamstown. Your RV adventure starts here at White Horse RV. Terry in Galloway chimes in and says, A.J. Brown is significantly better than Jaylen Waddle. I agree. He says, anyway, I'm going to watch WBC final today. I really haven't been in on the whole WBC, but I am locked in for tonight, says Terry in Galloway. And I think, Terry, if the U.S. wasn't in the final, I think there's a lot of people like you who would not be watching. I think that's a very fair thing to point out. I think that, as I told Frank Klose a little bit earlier, that it's the combination of the U.S. team making the run in the hockey Olympics, the men and the women, and then that energy rolling into the WBC. I think that has created more of an interest and anticipation for the U.S. getting to the final tonight. Rico chimes in on the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Says, drops and targets are more subjective than balls and strikes. We'll have to agree to disagree, Rico. I tend to think that drops are a pretty objective thing. I think targets are subjective. I think you're 100% right about the targets, because what qualifies as a target? Is it me throwing in your direction and you're not paying attention? Like, is that really a target? But to me, a drop is a drop, okay? If a receiver has the ball in his hands and he has the opportunity to catch it and he doesn't, that's a drop. And there's many times people don't call those drops for, oh, well, you know, the ball was thrown a little behind him or was a little out in front of it. No. You are paid millions of dollars to catch a football. You don't catch the ball. That is not subjective. Balls and strikes. I think the balls and strikes thing is getting fixed with the automation system. I look at baseball as taking the subjectivity away from the umpires for balls and strikes, and that's going to be a lot cleaner. So if I had to rank subjectivity, I agree targets are very subjective, but I think drops are not a subjective thing, Rico. I think that there's many times I've watched an NFL game And I've seen A.J. Brown or the aforementioned Jaylen Waddle, or I've heard Cortland Sutton drop passes. And listen, we all play fantasy football. How many times have we been sitting there watching a game, we see a guy have a chance to catch a ball, he doesn't catch it, and we scream at TV, why did you drop that pass? And then later you look at the stat sheet and you're like, wait a minute, he wasn't credited with dropping a pass. What is going on here? The greatest hater of all time, Lil Evan from Little Egg Harbor, chimes in at 609-403-0973. I will say, this is the first text I've seen from Evan and Little Egg Harbor that is not all caps. So, I don't know if Lil Evan realized how aggressive he was coming off with the all caps, or he just happened to hit the lowercase and then go back to uppercase later. Man, he is anti-Bryce Harper here. He says Team USA is stacked tonight, but Bryce Harper is going to hand the game over to Venezuela. Harper's playing like he's still rehabbing his elbow from 2023. How is he still in the lineup? It's ridiculous. I love to get him off of Team USA. Save Team USA, bench Harper immediately. Well, a couple things. Evan, first of all, man, your dislike for Bryce Harper is really over the top, buddy. Like, wowzer. I will give you credit. You did mix in the lower and the uppercase. It's a good job by you. It's a good job by you to balance the text a little bit better instead of just being all caps in my face. Your disgust for Bryce Harper is somewhere between impressive and disturbing. Jeff from Summers Point chimes in on Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. He says, Jaeger bombs were where it's at. Car bombs are gross. He says, unfortunately, no brewskis for me until after work. I'm here till 5. Happy St. Patty's Day. Go Sixers, says Jeff from Summers Point. Well, Jeff, you might be the only person watching the Sixers tonight. Obviously, I say that a little bit in jest. We do have one message that came in I did want to get to on the YouTube stream, watching at 973 ESPN. Angie is watching on the YouTube. She says, hey, Josh, I'm going to tune in tonight to hear Dick Vitale and Chuck throw some color on the NCAA tournament game, and then I'll turn over to WBC soon after. I'm done with the NBA till the playoffs. Yeah, for those who don't know, Dick Vitale and Charles Barkley are going to be a part of the color commentary team for the tournament games tonight with, I think it's Brian Anderson's on the play-by-play. So Brian Anderson will basically have to be a referee between two people who love to talk. Angie goes on to say, I agree with you about A.J. Brown. She says she thinks that Hollywood Brown, who the Eagles just signed, is going to replace Jahan Dotson, and how we can and should make A.J. stay. A.J. is sensitive. He's prone to mood swings. I can live with that, plus another 1,000 yards. I listen, you're right, A.J. is sensitive. He's prone to mood swings. But I don't think it's as easy as how we're saying you should make A.J. stay, Angie. I think it comes down to A.J.'s team is already looked around to find other teams. A.J. Brown basically told the Eagles, hey, here's about 4 teams I'd be interested in. That's going to be like Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo and Diana Rossini and others. Who's the other one I reported? Albert Breer. Albert Breer is another one reported. So A.J. is already looking for a world without the Eagles in his life. So I don't think it's as simple as Howie convincing A.J. to stay. I think it comes down to the fact that I think A.J., he's dated the Eagles for 4 years. He doesn't want to be in a committed relationship with them anymore, and he wants to be dating somebody else. It doesn't matter how many good times they had, no matter how much wonderful moments and experiences they had. I think A.J. wants out of town. Let me see here. So I'm not going to put it up on the screen because it mentions something that I cannot verify. But there is somebody who's commenting on the YouTube stream saying that someone is reporting that A.J. Brown is open to staying with the Eagles. I will just say this. You know why A.J. Brown is open to staying with the Eagles? Because A.J. Brown is realizing that the demand for him is not as high as he wanted it to be. He doesn't want to be with the Eagles anymore. He wants out of the relationship. He was given a hall pass. He went to the bar and he realized, like the Outkast song says, his bleep. He thinks his bleep don't stink. And then he gets out there and he realizes he smells like poo to some people. And now he's coming back with his tail between his legs being like, oh, well, you know, I can stay here. I don't have to leave. That's why that person's reporting that. That's not reporting. I don't care what his sources say inside the building. You know, unless I hear someone, not that person. And again, there's a laundry list of people who cover the NFL. From ESPN to NFL Network to The Athletic to Sports Illustrated to CBS Sports. Guy with large following on social media reporting he has sources is not reporting to me. Especially when what he's reporting is there's actually a legal term for it, but it's the idea that I don't need data to come to a conclusion. I can just find circumstantial evidence that brings me to a result, and that's why I can say, see, I have information. It's like, no, all you did was say 2 + 2 = 4. That's where I am with Alex in the Villas. This A.J. Brown stuff, I'm over it because every day there's some sort of new variable. Someone's got a new spin on it, and they want to make it like, I'm reporting information. Yeah, the Eagles signed a new wide receiver today. Hollywood Brown. How about them apples? What I think about the side of Hollywood Brown that to me is most interesting, I know a lot of people are going to look at the fact that Hollywood Brown is a speed receiver. At this point in his career, he's probably just a deep threat from the slot. So he's probably going to, like Angie mentioned earlier, he's probably going to replace Jan Dotson. To me, there's something else about Hollywood Brown that I personally think is very interesting. And that has to do with his college background. He has experience in that spread him out, distributing the ball offense that Lincoln Riley runs in college. That's the same offense that Jalen Hurts had success with when he was the Heisman runner-up. So now you're bringing in a receiver who has probably a better understanding than a Dotson or some other guys about how Jalen Hurts looks at the football field. Just a thought to go with the Hollywood Brown thing. All right. Coming up, your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. In about 11 minutes from now is Football at 4. Adam Caplan joins us from the Inside the Birds podcast for Football at 4, powered by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Don't forget to check out Ocean Casino Resort's Madness Zone, March 19th through the 22nd. Catch every college basketball game and place your bets at Atlantic City's best sports book while you eat, watch, and drink during the tournament. Also, you can get away with the Madness Zone hotel package, an overnight stay, plus a $50 food and beverage credit. Book now at theoceanac.com.
March Madness is coming.
It's inside to the freshman. Spins and hits.
To 97.3 ESPN. You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And it just keeps getting better.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Hey, there's that sounder right there on the radio. You can now qualify for the Phillies giveaway contest. You can go to Baltimore to see the Phillies in Camden Yards. Should be a fun summer, but you must call 609-573-3776 in order to qualify. And then you must be present at the Anchorage in Summers Point when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash broadcast live for opening day of the Phillies season Thursday, March 26th. So here's the deal. You call 609-573-3776. You qualify to win the Phillies trip giveaway. Then you must be present to win next Thursday, March 26th at the Anchorage in Summers Point. Join the fun. And if you don't qualify, you can still come and hang out and win prizes next Thursday at the Anchorage in Summers Point for Phillies opening day. Football at 4 with Adam Caplan joins us next on 97.3.
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Yes, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on the Sports Bash, St. Patrick's Day, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Island, streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. Let's get into it now with Adam Caplan, NFL insider, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast. As it's already been an interesting week for the Eagles, and it's only Tuesday. Adam, welcome in. How you doing today?
Josh, I hope you're doing well. You know, it's funny. Last year we kind of made fun of the Eagles with their low cash spend, and their cash spend is definitely up. There's no question about it. But what they're doing is, Josh, they've signed 8 players. This includes re-signings and UFAs from other teams. Every single player got a 1-year deal. It's just kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah, it's always interesting the way that the team always seems to have a theme. I feel like every offseason, whenever I listen to Inside the Birds pod, you and Jeff bring up about how there's almost like a theme with the team. So let's talk about, first of all, the move today, Adam. Hollywood Brown, the former Chiefs and Ravens wide receiver, he is now joining the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about him for a minute.
Yeah, so Hollywood Brown was a first-round pick for the Ravens, and the thing that I find really interesting about Hollywood Brown is he played 2 years at Oklahoma. Okay, he was a first-round pick in 2019 for the Ravens, and he averaged, Josh, around 18 yards per catch. But as a professional, it's way down. Honestly, I think it's more about who he's played with than the player, because if you really look at it, he was a big-time speed receiver. Now, if you just look at his numbers for his career, you go, where are the explosive plays? He's averaging less than 12 yards per catch. It's hard to believe. I mean, he scored some touchdowns. It's not like he can't score, and he's got some red zone touchdowns, which is interesting because he's a smaller guy. Now, he runs way better than his numbers would indicate, but you always have to remember he wanted out of Baltimore because they were at a running offense, and this is in the infancy of Lamar Jackson's career. Hollywood Brown had one really good year, and ironically, his last year in Baltimore, he had over 1,000 yards. And the reason why he kind of wanted to move on was he wanted more pass targets, he wanted more catches, and it was going to be the final year of his rookie deal. Then he had his 5th-year option. But what would happen is he went to Arizona, and the numbers just plummeted because Kyler Murray, injuries, inconsistent passer, and it just didn't work out. He was only there 2 years. He was with the Chiefs. He got hurt. 2 years ago. Didn't have a great year this past season, and that's why he had to sign a 1-year deal. And I give Howie Roseman credit. He sees a guy that wants to revive his career, could play this game. He's got to stay healthy. He's smaller, but he's explosive. And there was a reason why this guy's a first-round pick. And look, you could say what you want about Jalen Hurts, Josh, but one thing he can do is he can throw the deep ball.
Absolutely, and Brown is the kind of receiver that can go get that deep ball as well.
Yep.
The big news from the weekend, Adam, Dallas Goedert is back in Philadelphia after pushing back that void date not once but twice. Goedert returns to Philadelphia, and Adam, I think it's interesting, Moshe and I talked about this yesterday as well, Goedert returns for less money than he signed last year.
Yeah, I haven't got the full breakdown, but it's out there at $7 million. Last year he was scheduled to make $15.25 million in total cash. That's his salary, option bonuses, and everything else, and he got a pay cut to exactly $10 million. It is interesting, Josh, when you look at the Goddard situation. We told our Patreon members back when I was at the Super Bowl that I was told 2 things about Dallas Goedert, which surprised me. If he's back on the roster, they'll save a significant amount of cap space because of the void years. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And 2, he also wanted to be back. And on your point about them moving the void date back twice, it just shows you that he wanted to be an Eagle. I know that he likes living here. It might be also for family considerations. But the bottom line is he's back. He's 31 years old, which he just turned in January. And it is interesting. Calcaterra's back, 1-year deal. Johnny Munn, who's a West Coast offensive tight end specialist, he's only playing the West Coast offense, and that's what the Eagles are going to run. And Cam Latu, all their contracts will expire after this season.
More signings, of course, this offseason with Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Bird podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, at Caplan NFL on the X platform. What might be the most underrated signing, Adam, is punter Braden Mann, who has been a very valuable player for them in recent years.
Yeah, you know what's good about Braden Mann? He basically became one of the best punters in the National Football League with the Eagles. Like he was with the Jets. They didn't give him much of a chance. Andrew DeCecco and I actually interviewed him for a local radio show, and he kind of talked about his journey with the Jets, with the Steelers, where they couldn't decide what they wanted to do with him, and then he got a chance with the Eagles in 2023, and he kind of ran away with it. Now he's one of the better punters in the league, and it's a good story. He got a 4-year deal. He's 28 years old, and this has been, the Eagles, remember, back in their 22 Super Bowl, had all sorts of problems with punters, and now they've got their guy for the future.
Adam, on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles haven't done a ton, but obviously the biggest move that they made was the adding of Reek Woolen, who was a member of last year's Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, I like this one. Look, it's a little bit of a gamble, but this is a guy who's got a lot to prove. He needs to be coached up by Roy Anderson. The cornerbacks coach has done a really good job here. Woolen was a guy that came on out of UT, I think it's UT San Antonio, just was terrific his first season, where it made people around the league kind of wonder, like, why was this guy, now I know he's a former receiver, but why was this guy only a fifth-round pick? Well, then you would find out year 3, the regression started, and this season they made him, this past season the Seahawks made him very available to trade. They would have traded him if they could have got what they wanted. They were more than open, I'm told, to trading him, and they didn't, and he wound up being a Super Bowl champion. So the thing with him is, while he's a fluid athlete, the lack of discipline, it's very handsy, too many penalties, gives up plays, makes plays. He's just got to – he seemed pretty confident. I know talking with the media here, but he's got to be coached up. And he's another guy who's on a 1-year deal. He's on a high-end prove-it deal. He'll make $12 million this season. There's upside of $15 million. It's a gamble. There's no question. They also got Jonathan Jones, formerly of the Commandos and the Patriots 2-time Super Bowl champion, who was an undrafted free agent many years ago. He's near the end of his career, but this guy knows how to play. He'll be their third corner, and that's the way that they see him.
One of the more interesting guys they signed, Adam, is Arnold Ebiketie. This is a guy who, he was an okay player at Temple, but then he got to Penn State and he blew up. That's a big reason why he got drafted where he got drafted years ago. And from what I understand, he was somebody the Eagles looked closely at during the draft process.
Yeah, they brought him in for a pre-draft visit. And look, he played locally at Temple, then at Penn State for a season, so they knew the player very well. But he's a third edge rusher. That he's never been a full-time starter. 2 different coaching staffs at Atlanta saw him as a DPR, which is designated pass rusher. He's good at it. But, Josh, as we continue to tell people how he's looking to make that big move at edge, whether it's in the first round of the draft, whether it's in a trade, he's still looking at it. They gave away the answers to the test. They wanted Jaylen Phillips back. They would have paid him probably $25 million or more, but the Panthers blew everyone out of the water. 2 years, $60 million fully guaranteed. He'll make $80 million over the first 3 years. In fact, he's almost certain to see that $80 million. Jaylen Phillips is, because if he's on the roster the 5th day of free agency next year, that means they're going to guarantee $20 million in year 3. So it's an unbelievable contract. I can see why the Eagles didn't do that one.
Absolutely. Adam, you mentioned Jaylen Phillips, other players they lost in free agency. The one that I find the most interesting, and we can go through a couple more on less than this, but I find the departure of Sam Howell interesting because, there were all these theories out there of like, hey, what do the Eagles do with the backup quarterback long term? Tanner McKee is still here, and they acquired Howell last year right before the season started.
And that was because of the Tanner McKee broken finger. Now, you go to Dallas, and Sam Howell is a quality backup quarterback. Yeah, he should be able to beat out Joe Milton for the 2 job. Joe Milton's got major accuracy issues. He's got a big arm, but just I saw at the Senior Bowl. There's a reason why New England drafts him, then they trade him after 1 year. They knew what they were dealing with. And Sam Howell's a pretty good athlete. He's just not a tall guy. He's a gunslinger. I would expect him to win that job, to be Dak Prescott's back. And by the way, Prescott's had a big injury history.
Absolutely. Another guy the Eagles lost this offseason, and I'm not saying it is literally this, but the departure of Brett Toth and Matt Pryor, how much do you think, Adam, that had something to do with the issues last year with the offensive line depth?
Well, Matt Pryor just didn't do a good job. But Brett Toth, that second Giants game that he had, that was at home against the Giants, he was tremendous. It's the best ball of his career, and that got him a free agent contract with the Niners. The Eagles right now have a real big problem. They have no depth on the offensive line in terms of guys who've played before, so they need to address that. We expect them to address that. They don't have to do it now, but by the time they get to training camp, they've got to have two veterans in here.
Speaking of guys who are unsigned, what about Fred Johnson? Could he make a return?
Yeah, he's still out there. Quality backup. You don't want him starting more than 4 or 5 games, and it becomes a problem. But, yeah, he could play right tackle or left tackle. He's still out there. When I look at my free agent file, Josh, of the best available guys who are out there on the street at tackle, he's probably, other than Kelvin Beachum, is more of a right tackle than left. James Hudson could play both. Joseph Noteboom. Now, what you have to understand, though, Fred Johnson's best ball as a backup was for Jeff Stoutland, who's no longer the Eagles' offensive line coach. It's odd to say that, Josh. It's just, that's the thing. We don't know with Chris Cooper what he likes. We know the scheme is going to change, and they're probably going to get better athletes than Fred Johnson.
Another guy who's unsigned right now, he's a restricted free agent. The Ben Van Sumeren thing fascinates me, Adam, because you and Jeff have talked about on the Inside the Birds podcast that he was supposed to be a part of this offense as a fullback, and then he got injured the first play of the season, and you could argue that probably changed a lot of things for the Eagles' offense.
Well, him and Johnny Wilson had a devastating knee injury, so Van Sumeren, because he suffered yet another bad injury, was not tendered as fully expected as a restricted free agent. So he could sign anywhere he wants now. A.J. Dillon's out. A.J. Dillon I don't see returning. I mean, it would make no sense. They have a full backfield. They need one more back, but A.J. Dillon can find a better role elsewhere, and that would be it for offense.
And then on defense, Adam, a guy that I think a lot of people are curious about would be Brandon Graham, who says he wants to return. He says he wants to keep playing. Could this be a situation like last year where he's kind of waiting in the wings, break glass in case of emergency?
Exactly. They could wait till training camp. They don't need to do anything. First of all, they have to see what they're going to do to replace Jalen Phillips. Will it be a trade? Will it be the draft? Well, if they add a significant piece, it would be VG would be out of luck because unless they trade Nolan Smith, because Nolan Smith, Hunt, Ebiketie, and that fourth guy that I'm talking about, that new guy, I'm talking about if they make a big move, that guy would be starting. So they had 4 edges, and they like to take a look at Jose Ramirez, who was a draftee of the Bucks, who was a MAC defensive player of the year for 1 year. He had one real big year at Eastern Michigan, who's been playing the CFL. So yeah, there just wouldn't be room for him. And Fangio is interesting. He really only likes to play 3 edges. He did the same thing with the Niners during their Super Bowl run of 2012.
For more coverage of the Eagles, check out the Inside the Birds podcast. Like, subscribe, and download wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Adam Caplan on the X platform at Caplan NFL. Adam, we won't talk to you again this week, so enjoy the rest of your week.
That's right. All right, man. Be well. Thanks.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. Yes, we will not be live Thursday and Friday because of the NCAA tournament. Of course, you can hear the NCAA tournament all day long here on 97.3 ESPN. Thursday and Friday from 12 noon to midnight. We have all the games on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And speaking of that tournament this week, you can get in on all the action at Ocean Casino Resort's Madness Zone, March 19th through 22nd. Catch every college basketball game. Place your bets at Atlantic City's best sportsbook while you watch, eat, and drink all tournament long. Also, turn it into a getaway. This weekend, the Madness Zone Hotel Package, an overnight stay, plus a $50 food and beverage credit. Book now at theoceanac.com. All right, let's get to a couple of points that Adam made during that segment. I want to backtrack to the Hollywood Brown thing because he mentioned about the fact that Jalen Hurts is a good deep ball thrower, and the fact that if his strength, right, if we're leaning into what Jalen does well, right, then I think it's fair to say, why don't we bring in more people who can do what Jalen does well? Why don't we bring in more people who are capable of amplifying what Hurts is good at? I think that's more than fair to say, right? I think it's more than fair to say that maybe part of the problem with the offense last year was they didn't have enough guys who amplify what the quarterback does well. And if Hurts throws a good deep ball and Hollywood Brown basically is a one-trick pony at this point, a guy who just runs deep and he gets targets, then maybe that is part of the answer to the Eagles offense under new offensive coordinator Sean Mannion. Adam also mentioned the fact that everyone's getting one-year deals. Goddard, Calcaterra, Ebikite, Reek Woolen, Jonathan Jones. It is obvious to me that the Eagles are planning for a future where they're going to need to give out contract extensions. Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, what's his name? Quinyon Mitchell, the bad job by me. Quinyon Mitchell, down the road, Jahad Campbell on the offensive side of the ball. Whoever you draft to replace Lane Johnson in 3 years from now, that guy's probably going to want a contract extension. Whoever replaces Dallas Goedert 4 years from now, that guy's going to need a contract extension. So there is so much short-term planning the Eagles are doing in order to adjust to a world that, guess what? They got to maximize what they have now and still plan for the future. And I think that's where all of this A.J. Brown fiasco gets into play, right? It's the idea that for the Eagles, I think, at least in my opinion, I think that they are being smart in not overextending themselves contract-wise. Unlike what the Sixers and Phillies have done in giving boatloads of money to people who, by the time their contracts are done, they're going to be so far past their prime that money's going to look bad in the rearview mirror. The Eagles are saying, no, we're not signing people beyond their expiration date. Howie has said in the past in interviews that Roseman signed guys for the wrong reasons after the first Super Bowl championship. Remember, they gave extensions to guys like Alshon Jeffrey when they probably shouldn't have. And those guys, instead of playing, hey, you're good for right now, but we can't hope that you're going to be good forever. Well, Alshon, his body broke down. He wasn't the same again. And it happened to a couple other guys as well. You saw Brandon Brooks, he ran until his body broke down. You remember the whole situation with Jay Ajayi where he was a flash in the bottle and then the knees gave out after a while. So the Eagles, I think, are being very smart in planning short term and not getting locked in long term. Ray and EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973. We were talking about what people are going to watch tonight. He says, Josh, I'm going to watch the Sixers game from 10:10 to 12:30. There should be time for all the other stuff before the Sixers game starts. He says, with that being said, maybe the Eagles locker room is so good that A.J. Brown is considering staying because maybe they're talking him into it. Look about Dallas Goedert taking less money to come back to the organization. Maybe A.J. hears all this outside noise and things want to trade him, and he's trying to get ahead of the situation. It's certainly possible, Ray and EHT. I think the problem with A.J. Brown at this point is I think A.J. doesn't know what A.J. wants, and that creates more problems than anything else. And I think that's where, like Jeff McClain said on the Uncovering the Birds podcast about how it's not that A.J. Brown's a bad guy or a malcontenter. It's just that he's not in love with being here, but he doesn't hate being here. He's just kind of in this malaise about being here because he knows at least he's familiar with being here. He knows the people. He's happy. He likes his teammates, etc. Let's squeeze in one more text on the Wayhorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Jeff from Summers Point says, Josh, why won't the Eagles give Trotter Jr. a chance? Every time he gets opportunity to play, he proves he absolutely could be a larger part of this defense. Just curious. I don't get why they don't use him more. Well, Trotter Jr.'s got two things working against him, Jeff in Summers Point. One is his skill set is a bit redundant with some of the other guys. In many ways, he is a lesser version of Jihad Campbell and Zach Bond. He doesn't do anything that complements those guys. He's basically redundant. He's a repeat. He's a duplicate. And so if you were to put him on the field more with those other guys, you're not getting players who do different things. Like Campbell and Bond are different players. Trotter does a little bit of what each guy does. So if you put him on the field next to Bond or next to Campbell, you're not getting a guy who does anything special and new or unique is the first part. Second problem is I think Trotter Jr., for whatever reason, he hasn't really proven to Vic Fangio that he is to be trusted with doing more. We know that Vic Fangio has been very vocal about, hey, I need guys to be able to do multiple things. Well, maybe the fact that Trotter Jr. is really good at two things, while Bond is really good at four things and Campbell is good at three things, puts him, behind the eight ball. And unless the Eagles are going to convert Jihad Campbell to a full-time edge rusher, that's really the only the only way that I see Trotter Jr. getting more playing time. Now, no Nakobe Dean here. Maybe that opens the door as well for Trotter Jr., Jeff at Summers Point. Maybe Trotter Jr. will get on the field more because he doesn't have Nakobe Dean on that depth chart. I think that is part of the conversation as well. With the more text a little bit later in the show, Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. So to come, we have Nick's Nuggets, Nick Earnshaw coming up on the other side, plus an opportunity for you to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway contest. You can be like Matt in Sicklerville and others and have opportunity to win a Phillies trip to Baltimore. You must listen for the sounder, and when you hear the sounder, you call in, you qualify, and then you must be present next Thursday at the Anchorage in Summers Point in order to win the grand prize. If you don't qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway, you can still win other prizes, but you must be present at the Anchorage in Summers Point next Thursday, Phillies opening day, with Mike Gill and the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X. Just follow 973 ESPN.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Nothing dramatic or crazy in the forecast here. Unseasonable cold will be with us for another day, and then we kick into our next welcome warming trend. Tonight, mainly clear and chilly, low temperature 28 degrees. Tomorrow, sun and clouds, still on the cold side, high of only 39. Better on Thursday for the last day of winter, mostly sunny, high 49. More clouds and more seasonable Friday, high 55. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash Tuesday edition, St. Patrick's Day, 97.3 ESPN. You know, I saw some people earlier in the show saying they were having happy hour Tuesdays and happy hour Friday, which is actually pretty smart because we won't be on the radio on Friday on 97.3 ESPN. We get the March Madness. It actually starts tonight, 6:30 p.m. Coverage of the first four. Tonight, tomorrow night, and then all-day coverage from noon to midnight, Thursday and Friday. You're home for the NCAA tournament here in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. It's time for Nick Earnshaw to join us. Nick Earnshaw, of course, he is 97.3 ESPN producer extraordinaire. Joins us each and every day for the Nuggets segment here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. As, Nick, it's just one of those days. I hope your day is better today than it was yesterday for you, buddy.
I appreciate that, Josh. You know, I totally forgot it was St. Patty's Day today. I don't think I knew until about 1 o'clock today that it was St. Patrick's Day. I have not one lick of green on. Not one lick.
I would have figured you would have been like the first person on top of that.
Can I be honest? This might ruffle some feathers. This might be one of my worst takes. This might be one of the worst ones.
All right, we'll let the listeners define that, but okay.
St. Patty's Day, Halloween, Valentine's Day, top 3 most overrated holiday.
Well, I agree about Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was a completely fabricated holiday for Hallmark, okay? I mean, that if you love someone, you don't need a day out of the year to show it. You got 364 other days out of the year to show it.
Yeah.
Halloween is kind of a hit or miss thing for me. I actually appreciate it more than I'm older than when I'm younger. I thought it was dumb when I was younger. Now that I'm older, it's kind of like cool and fun. Like go to like a house party with like people dressing up. St. Patrick's Day, I'm typically working. So it's like I went to one pub crawl one time because it landed on a Saturday one year, and I didn't walk away from that experience being like, I want to do that again. I walked away from that experience being like, I hate being the guy taking care of all the drunk people. That's how I walked away from that.
You know, it's you just wear green, you have a couple pops, you know, you can do that anytime. Anytime. That's just my opinion. Might be a bad thing.
Are you part of the generation, or it's just my generation? Did you ever do the Irish car bombs?
No. I mean, I'm not one to partake. I've had friends that have partaked. I'm not one. I told you, it's just a little overrated to me. That's all. You just wear the green. You have a couple pops. You know, that's a little.
Well,
that doesn't do much for me.
Well, I guess the Irish car bomb, because it seems like everyone who agrees with me, they're all of a certain age. But basically, like, you know, even if you didn't go out for it, it was one of those things where, like, someone would hand it to you and be like, we're doing this. And you're like, all right, we're doing this, you know?
Like, this is not a holiday I'm marking down on my calendar. Like, not marking down at all. Like, I'll make some brackets today. Yeah, oh, it's around that time. Yeah, I usually remember it's around the MAC tournament time. And then college basketball. That's usually when it starts, so.
Ray in EHC says that's the best take I've ever heard from Knicks Nuggets.
How about that? Look at that. I thought it was going to be one of my worst, to be honest. I thought it'd be an unpopular opinion. I think it's just overrated.
It goes on to say, he says, other than Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving, the rest of the holidays are made up for corporations to make money. You guys are right. The only reason why I say Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving is because they all have some sort of historical or religious significance to them.
St. Patty's Day does have a historical significance.
Yeah, but people don't even know the history anymore,
No,
okay?
no.
The history is so far gone and lost.
The modern day is really my take. The modern day. It's just you wear green, you have a couple of pops, and that's your day for St. Patty's Day. That's just my estimation. I think Ray's right. And by the way, Thanksgiving. I mean, it just gets no love. It gets no love. It doesn't have a day. There's no Thanksgiving Day deals. It's always the Black Friday Day deals. It gets skipped over. I think that's the best holiday in my estimation.
I am a huge Thanksgiving fan, so you will never get an argument from me with that.
Oh, it's a great holiday. Food, family, snaps, football. How can you beat it? There's nothing better. Nothing better than Thanksgiving. It is a top-tier holiday. Not even Halloween doesn't come close. St. Patty's Day doesn't come close. They don't come close. Valentine's Day, not even in the stratosphere of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's fantastic. Sorry, I had to get that out.
You feel better now?
I feel much better because I didn't know it was St. Patty's Day until like 1 o'clock today. I saw a coworker walking around. Oh, you're wearing a lot of green today. Is that today? I don't have a lick of green on. I got my 97.3 quarter zip on. I got gray shoes, black pants, and a gray hoodie underneath. Not even close. Not even close. All right, let's get into these Nuggets. Speaking of wearing red today, I got my 97.3 ESPN jacket on. WBC Day. It's Championship Tuesday. That's what the real holiday is. We get to watch baseball, USA, Venezuela, WBC Championship in the finals tonight. All right, you put out a poll today, Josh, and I saw it earlier. I want to rehash that poll a little bit in Nugget number one. The poll question of the day was, you wanted to know what your priority to watch tonight was. It was USA and WBC finals, NCAA first four in college basketball, Sixers at 10 p.m., college basketball first four, then USA, WBC. USA in WBC finals is currently in the lead at 60%. I actually think that CBB, the college basketball first four, then USA WBC is actually a stronger answer here, Josh. I think that one's getting underrated and getting overlooked a little bit.
Well, it's getting overlooked because I mentioned this earlier in the show. I think there's a contingent of people, right? Because, not everyone has the time to sit down and watch things, right? So True. I think there's a contingent of people who are like, look, I want to watch this WBC.
Yes.
It's at 8 o'clock. I'm going to use the time before the WBC to get things done. Maybe you got to go to the store. Maybe you got to run errands. Maybe your kid's got a game for sports tonight, right? So maybe for a lot of people, the college basketball before WBC would be like if they didn't have other things to do.
Fair. That's a fair assessment. For me, I got not too much to do after my work day today, so I will be tuning in to the college basketball first four, filling out some brackets, and then going right into the WBC. Now, get my popcorn. I'll be ready.
Couple questions for you. One, are you the guy who waits until the first four is done to fill out your bracket?
I'm usually I have no rhyme or reason. Usually I will go before or after, doesn't matter. It's when I can get it in, essentially. Whatever fits my schedule to get my brackets in. If it's before the first four, great. Because honestly, sometimes I just willy-nilly just start picking teams because you never know with the brackets. You have no idea. Like there's times I'll put like a 16 over a 1 just in case in one of my brackets. I'll fill out like 15 or 20 of them. So like you can't think too hard about your brackets. You just can't.
Okay, fair.
That's just my assessment. I'm sorry.
I thought that was a direct shot at me there, but all right.
No, it's not a direct shot at you. I'm just saying. You can know anything and everything. We've had bracketologists try and pick brackets. You're never going to get every game right. It just doesn't happen. Something crazy happens every year. That's the beauty of the whole thing. It's like, all right, I can look at some of the matchups. All right, maybe this one I could see being a better upset than this one, etc. But I feel like for the brackets, don't think too much. Don't think too much. Have fun with the brackets. Things get insane. That's why they call it March Madness, because we see the craziest games and the craziest upsets every single year. It's like clockwork.
By the way, did you see what Bryce Harper wore to the ballpark?
Well, I was going to get into that. By the way. Can I get into that? So,
yeah, I mean,
it came out earlier, and I was waiting for this all day, that the WBC, all the players on the USA team came out and were given USA hockey jerseys. And it wasn't just the sweaters like, willy-nilly, let's send you a jersey from the USA hockey team. No. Team USA was wearing game-worn USA Olympic hockey jerseys heading into the stadium today. Unbelievable. Pete Crow Armstrong actually reached out to Jack Hughes to make it happen via The Athletic. So then they put out a whole social media thing. All the players are wearing one of the players from the U.S. Olympic hockey team's jersey heading into the stadium today. And if you're watching on X, watching on YouTube, Josh has the video up there right now of all the players walking in with the USA sweaters on. And this is what I'm talking about, Josh. The momentum carried over from the Winter Olympics into the WBC. And you know what? It got me thinking, Josh.
I think, by the way, and also the viewership interest, I think, carried over.
Yes, the viewership, clearly. And that's what this is what I want to get into this point, is we talk about the, baseball being in the Olympics and why don't they take off during the season? Why don't you just make it into the Winter Olympics? Why don't you just have baseball in the Winter Olympics so that these guys can participate? It's carrying over. Why not try that out or do something with the World Baseball Classic and tie it into the Olympics? Something along those lines. I think it could make a lot of sense here.
I don't hate it. I don't hate that idea. I would prefer, if you made me choose between baseball in the Winter Olympics and the WBC, I would take baseball Winter Olympics 10 out of 10.
That's what I mean. Like, why don't you, all right, we're not going to do the WBC. We're going to put these guys in the Winter Olympics this year instead. Instead of doing the WBC, let's do the Winter Olympics, have baseball in the Winter Olympics. It's a little bit prior to when the WBC happens, but I think that's reasonable. I think that can work. Why not put them in the Winter Olympics?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I wouldn't be against it. I just feel like baseball belongs to the Olympics in general. Sure. I'm sure there's probably some logistical issue when it comes to doing it that way, what you're talking about, but I don't hate it. Like, I'm fine with it. If you told me that, Bryce Harper's got to show up or whoever's got to show up to, I don't know, wherever they would train at the end of January, let's say,
Sure.
Because usually what the basketball players, they show up like a month before the Olympics, I believe, like 3 weeks before the Olympics to like start working out. So like if you told me that the baseball in the Olympics started, I don't know, let's say it's like February 8th.
I mean,
how much weeks before that?
How much time did they really start before the WBC? You know what I mean? It wasn't like this elongated
they
thing.
did report the spring training earlier than usual because of it.
So why not do that for the Olympics every 4 years? I don't think it's not an every year thing. Either is the WBC, so it could work.
By the way, another person appreciates your take on the holidays.
I'm 2-0 right now. Are you kidding me? I thought it'd be 0-2.
You're actually 3-0.
3-0.
Jeff in Ocean City. God bless Nick. Great take on the 3 overrated holidays.
Sometimes I think I have better takes than I thought. Because I thought that would be unpopular, to be honest.
Now, one person did say, Jeff in Port Norris, he says he doesn't understand how you don't like holidays, but you like sick days.
What's wrong with a sick day? I take 1, 2 every year. We got our world traveler down in Florida right now. He's out in Florida. He takes a vacation day all the time. I barely take vacation days. I'm taking one this year. I'll tell you that. I'm taking one this year. I'll take a couple days this year. That's for damn sure. But I take 1 sick day, 2 in a row, get back, and now I'm at 100%, and I'm still getting ripped for it. It's unbelievable.
Josh K. May says Thanksgiving is the greatest holiday of all time.
On point. It's just outstanding. It's just a fantastic holiday. It blows any holiday out of the water.
All right, what's the next nugget for us?
All right, I thought you were going to read another one. Anyway, to the tickets that I wanted to share the ticket prices for tonight's WBC. According to some of the major ticket outlets, StubHub from $358 to $11,653 for the better seats. Ticketmaster $380 to $6,658. Vivid seats, $373 to $6,691. It is a pretty penny to get into that WBC final tonight between Venezuela and the U.S., Josh. Unbelievable how much this has how big this has grown this year. Seriously, it's the momentum's clearly carried.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, anytime people who can make a buck off of somebody can make a buck off of somebody, they're going to do it. I mean, it's like anything in life. Anytime there's a situation or an incident, if it's good, bad, whatever, people will capitalize it. They'll make money off it. I'll never forget. I don't know if you're old enough to remember all the details of this, but when Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012, there were a lot of scammers out there, who were trying.
I remember. I was old enough.
Well, I don't know what you remember or not. I can't.
I'm just
trying to pigeonhole you and be like, oh, what's all about? I've run into that problem with
not
people
that young.
before.
I'm going to be pushing 30 this year.
But there were scammers back in 2012. People who were from insurance adjusters. People would steal people's money, and it became like a whole legal thing. Or people had to get certify it by the government, basically, in order to come in and look at your damaged property. So anytime I hear about, I can't believe how expensive these tickets are, I'm like, people stink. People are going to rip you off if they have a chance to.
Yeah, they will. All right. Well, there are the prices for the WBC. Astronomical. Shocker. I'm just kidding. It's not a shocker one bit. All right. Moving along. Nugget number 2. I'm going to get a little negative and a little upset. I know I've already done that a couple times today during the Nuggets, but a quote came out during a shoot-around from a former Sixer, and I'm just going to continue to harp on just how asinine this trade was. It was just unbelievable of Jared McCain. Jared McCain was asked about playing alongside a big man who can make screening a highlight play via Isaiah Hartenstein, who is the big man down in Oklahoma City. He said, quote, this is via Jared McCain. It's crazy. When I was in Philly, Joel would do that with Tyrese, and I was like, dang, that's really cool right there. So being able to be a part of it is really fun. Playing with Hart, Jay Will, Chet, they're all elite bigs. I'm excited to play with them. Now, Jared McCain, nice guy. Very, very bubbly guy. Smiling all the time, very, very positive energy. That was a clear shot. And maybe direct, maybe indirectly, maybe not. Maybe, he's just, answering the question. And Nick Nurse. And not getting him involved in the pick and roll game, in the screenplays with Joel when he was on the floor. It just didn't happen. The creativity was not there. And you are seeing a night and day difference between what the Sixers run and what the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder run with their guards. And they have plenty of them. They didn't need a Jared McCain. They just added him to the fray, and he has fit in picture perfectly, Josh. What did you make of those comments from Jared?
I mean, listen, he's speaking the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. That's what he's doing. I mean, I don't think anything he said was crazy. I think Jared McCain.
He said it's crazy.
Well, okay, he said right. But I mean, I'm trying to say this as concisely as possible, so I don't run out of real estate here. But I think because McCain is a social media darling, star, whatever you want to call him, he's got a really big following on TikTok, I know. I think that he's probably a better communicator than maybe some other athletes are.
Sure.
And I think that he's in a position where he could probably articulate it in a way that is going to be a little bit more, to the point. And, the fact he does it with a smile on his face, probably helps. It's kind of disarming. It's like a good public speaker who will tear you down but smile at you while doing it. So I just look at McCain as a good guy, should have never been traded, and he knows it. We know it. Everyone knows it except Daryl Morey.
Yeah, he sold high. He sold real high on Jared McCain.
Maybe what he meant selling high wasn't about the draft picks. Yeah, maybe it was about something else.
Yeah, it could have been something else. You're motioning to me. On the YouTube and the X platforms here. Someone had to have been in that room who made the deal, who made the final call. It's unfortunate because it just it irks you because of how good they were in the month of January. Everything fell apart after the Paul George suspension. It just petered from there. And Jared is going to be asked about this. This is going to follow him for a long time. And people are going to ask him about this for a little while at least. But in this city, it's going to be remembered. This is not going to be forgotten in Philadelphia 76ers lore. They traded this guy after barely playing any games for them, getting hurt, coming back. They couldn't find a role for him, and they just moved on, cut bait, and didn't do anything after that. They didn't use those assets for anything. So he's going to get asked about it and compared, especially the rest of this season. But, man, this one hurts. It hurts, to say the least, if you're a Sixers fan.
All right, he's Nick Earnshaw. That's today's Knicks Nuggets here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Nick, thanks again for jumping on. And can I say you'll be on tomorrow?
Yes, I'll be on tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy. We'll see you soon.
Take care, Nick Earnshaw, joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. You know what it is time to be thankful for? Another opportunity for you to qualify for the Phillies trip to Baltimore contest. All right, that's the sounder. Caller number 7 at 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. You call in and you can qualify for your chance to go to the Phillies game in Baltimore. The trip is paid for and you get to go with a +1. Friend, significant other, family member, whoever you want. And when you qualify, you must be present at the Anchorage in Summers Point next Thursday, March 26th, with Mike Gill and the Sports Bash broadcasting live from the Anchorage Summers Point for Phillies opening day. 609-573-3776. You're a qualifier for the Phillies trip to Baltimore contest. Coming up next, Austin Krell, who covers the Sixers for Sports Illustrated, joins us on 97.3 ESPN.
South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Five o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, Philly for Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN. You will have another opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway coming up in about 15 minutes from now. Congratulations to our latest qualifiers. We have Rob from Millville, Josh from Atlantic City. Not me, Josh. No, Josh from Atlantic City are the qualifiers for the Phillies trip giveaway contest. And you could be the next group of qualifiers in about 50 minutes from now. Just listen for the sounder. You can qualify when you call the number, when the sounder goes off. And then again, once you qualify, you must be present next Thursday at the Anchorage in Summers Point when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live for Phillies opening day. Next Thursday, the Anchorage in Summers Point. You must be present to win. Well, one team that is present right now, because the Phillies are still in spring training, but the Sixers have kind of gotten forgotten about after basically the entire team got injured, and somehow they found a way to win some games here. Austin Krell joins us from Sports Illustrated, joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Austin, welcome in. How you doing today?
How's it going, Josh? Always good to talk to you.
I'm glad you jumped on, and I see I'm not the only one wearing green today.
Pure coincidence.
Well, there's a lot of people I've seen around the office who are not wearing green today. So I kind of like, there was like one person in the whole building aside from me. And I was like, and I'm not even really like a person dressed up for holidays. It's just like I was trying to be like, spirited,
St. Patty's Day, of course. How could I? Yeah. I keep thinking that was this past Saturday. I don't know what I'm doing.
I think most people celebrated this past Saturday. That's why.
Yeah.
So. But the Sixers, speaking of this past weekend, they won a couple games in a row here, Austin, even though half the team is injured. In fact, they've won 3 of the last 4 games. What has been the key for this team finding ways to win games without basically half their players?
I think they've launched an all-out assault on the mid-range. Like, they've really gotten into the paint a lot recently. I think last game against Portland was the more impressive of their 2 wins over the weekend. And they shot, I think, like 22 of 43 within the arc, and they shot very well at the between the foul line and I think 4 feet of the rim. So, I mean, that's been the biggest story, is like they've been able to put points on the board, keep teams at bay, stunt, extensive runs by the opposition just by not being flummoxed by size inside and perimeter defense. They've been aggressive and getting into spots, and they've been able to just keep their offense going.
You mentioned about keeping the offense going. I think it's very impressive, and especially if you go back to the Portland game, it's the fact that you look at some of the guys who are stepping up, and one of them in particular that I wanted to ask you about is Justin Edwards. And the comment by Nick Nurse the other day kind of made me annoyed, because Nick Nurse is like, well, we've been looking for a 3-and-D guy, and, we've given Justin an opportunity here. And in my mind, I'm thinking, did he show you for the last 2 years he can basically be this guy? I'm not saying he's going to score 21 points every night, but I think Edwards has shown that he is more than capable of being a part of this team's rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like it's 2 games. Let's see how he fares over a longer stretch of play. Nick Nurse did say, I think after the win over Portland, that he believes that the player they need him to be is in there. It's just a matter of him getting more experience, getting stronger, and I think that's a fair assessment. His defense at times is not good enough. He gets beat off the dribble quite a bit and doesn't keep guys in front of him. And there are times when he's just not quite strong enough with the ball. But, I mean, he's one of their best shooters at the moment. And he's gotten comfortable with, like, if the closeout comes my way, I got to take one or two dribbles in, pull up for a mid-ranger. And he was a catalyst for both the win in Brooklyn, or both the win against the Brooklyn Nets and on Sunday against the Blazers.
Austin Krell joining us from Sports Illustrated here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers back in action tonight. Coverage begins at 10 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN. We just talked about, Edwards, but what about the other guy who I think is the bigger, younger name, and that being VJ Edgecombe? This is a guy who he pretty much came back from a messed up back, if we're just being like simplifying it. And he looks none the worse for wear. He still looks like a rookie who's going to have good and bad games. But I like the fact, Austin, that if he's not shooting well, he's doing the other stuff, right? He's going out there and saying, hey, one night I might not be making the three, but I'm going to get other guys involved. I'm going to play some defense. And I think that it feels like, to me, I don't know how you feel, but it's like Edgecombe is a type of player this team has needed for like a decade.
Yeah, I think better than that, really. I think one of the big things is he's just not perturbed by his own struggles. He figures things out within the flow of the game. You put solid defenders in front of him, he might rush a shot or might get blocked or might lose a ball, and then he'll come back and he'll be a little bit stronger, a little bit better with the ball in his hand, and he'll end up having a good game. Like I thought against the Trailblazers, I wrote this from an airport yesterday. It was one of the best games I've seen him play as a rookie, for the principal reason being, like, he figured out problems in real time. And Portland is not that good of a team. They're under 500, but Donovan Clingan is huge. Robert Williams III is a prominent rim protector. They have Drew Holiday. They have Tumani Kamara, all guys that would really clog up Edgecombe's decision-making with the ball in his hands. And early on, he was like a little bit three-point happy. As the game went on, he was like a little bit rushing in the mid-range. And then as the second half arrived, he slowed down. He got to his spots, drilled a couple of massive jumpers, including a midi with 40 seconds left in the game against Kamara all over him. That's a really difficult shot for anyone to take, let alone a 6'4" rookie. And so the poise that he shows, the courage that he has, and the lack of fear, big boy moment.
Definitely a big boy moment. And I think that it's just exciting to watch a young guy as dynamic as him in a Sixers uniform. I mean, no offense to other guys, but, when the Sixers drafted Markelle Fultz, you hoped he could be something like this, right? Ben Simmons never shot a three except for once his entire career. Every guy the Sixers drafted in the past, there was always yeah, but with most of those guys. And it feels like Edgecombe is the fulfillment of every hope and dream Sixer fan has ever had about the idea of what a rookie should look like,
Yeah, he's an ultra competitor. I think, was it the game against, I forget what game it was. It might have been Memphis. Yeah, Memphis, I think it was. And they were down, I think, 7 or 8 in the end of the third quarter. This was the game that Maxey was ruled out for 3 weeks. I mean, he comes right into the basket and follows up his own miss for a putback, and then steals the inbound pass and nearly knocks down a half-court three that would have basically drawn the deficit to a one possession. So he has these moments where he's tenacious, and he has this star grit to him that a lot of stars have finesse. It takes them a while. It takes some failures to get that level of grit and experience. He just comes in and he does a lot of the hustle things and the things that you do when you don't have these innate skills, to shoot over people like Kevin Durant would, per se.
So Sixers play Denver tonight in Denver, part of a 3-game road trip they are currently on. I don't think a lot of people will expect them to win tonight, Austin, but it looks like that they could, if you were to project ahead, win in Sacramento, win in Utah, and then come back and, oh, by the way, got to play OKC. So it's a very odd 4-game stretch, kind of like sandwiched in 2 beatable teams. And I feel like if they can come out of the next 4 games just going 2-2, that's a pretty good result, all things considered, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think any given night you can have an unbelievable night. Like they beat Minnesota in Minnesota a couple weeks ago because they had a heck of a night shooting a 3. I think if 99 times out of 100 they would lose tonight, but maybe tonight's that one night that they don't. We'll see. But like Utah, Sacramento, very winnable games. OKC is going to be tough. And then they have Chicago somewhere in there, and then I think Paul George is back. So
yeah,
Joel comes back sometime in the next couple games. Paul George is back. I think they are staying afloat for the moment, but they definitely need their reinforcements back. But I do think that winning, 3 of the last 4, whatever it was, has definitely stabilized some things for them.
If you're telling me that you get Paul George and Joel Embiid back in time for, I think it's March 28th when they play Charlotte, that's probably bigger than almost winning the game, making sure that you're at least, at almost full strength against a Charlotte team that is, that's got to be one of the hottest teams in the NBA. That team has absolutely been nuts for the last few months.
Yeah, they were I think the best team in the play-in number-wise for up until like a couple of weeks ago, and then they've lost a couple. But they're a very dangerous team. I would not want to see them in the play-in. There's still some upwards mobility for the Sixers to get out of the play-in. But if I'm Philly, I'm looking at the matchups, and do I want Cleveland in the first round? No. I don't really want New York in the first round either. Mitchell Robinson's a problem. Boston, I wouldn't like. It's a tough matchup because it's Boston, but I think they're better equipped to handle Boston. I think that like the team that I would be circling if I'm them, that I would like my chances the most. Not to say I would definitely win, but I like my chances the most is Detroit. And so I think that'll pose some interesting questions for how they handle the rest of this season.
When you think about, you mentioned the rest of the season, I think that's an interesting point you brought up at the end there, because you do have a stretch of games where you can manage yourself in the standings. But I'll ask you, is the return of Joel Embiid and Paul George enough to manage that, considering the fact of, you mentioned you do have potential playoff matches with teams that are not good matchups for you?
Is it enough? I don't know. I think Paul should be ready to go like as soon as his suspension is up. Joel, we will see. I think one of the big failures of this season, I think, in the dialogue about the Sixers is like everything's about, can they be healthy? They've largely been healthy for most of this season. Paul missed 25 games with a suspension, not an injury, a suspension. He missed the first 12 games of the year with recovering from off-season surgery and was very available up until the suspension. Joel has not had recurrent left knee issues all season. He's had some right knee issues, but not the left knee that kept him out most of last year. And this oblique thing is a fluke thing. Maxey was available all year until he collided with the Dembona. All of the things that have kept their core players out at this time are like not health-related long-term things. And so do they have the talent? Yeah. A lot of people would have said last season that they should have been the favorites coming out of the East until the season went into the grave early. I think they have the talent, but like they're going to need some answers in depth. And I do think Justin Edwards poses some opportunity for them. Same thing with Jabari Walker. They're going to have to figure out like, okay, who is playable in a rotation in the playoffs and who can we rely on for 15, 16, 17 minutes a night. The more I watch Dom Barlow, the more I'm skeptical because he's not really much of a shooter. And the rebounding just isn't good enough to justify him being on the court only for defense and cutting. But there are other pieces that are coming into play. Quentin Grimes has been awesome lately. We'll see if he can. If Nick Nurse can find a way to up his involvement in the offense without also taking away chances and opportunities from Tyrese.
He's Austin Krell. Follow him on the X platform at Krell NBA for all of your Sixers and NBA coverage. Also over at Sports Illustrated. And he joined us here on the Sports Bash. Late night for the East Coasters here. 10 p.m. Eastern. Sixers versus Denver. And of course, you hear the game. Tom and get us on the call here on 97.3 ESPN. Austin, great stuff today.
Thank you, Josh.
Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We'll get back to the White Horse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0970. But kind of like to wrap up the Sixers' thoughts. I like what he said about the Justin Edwards thing because there is an opportunity to be had for this team to figure out who will and will not be a part of the postseason rotation. You know, I have this conversation with a buddy of mine all the time about Dominic Barlow, about how Dominic Barlow is just not good enough in any capacity. There is no world where Dominic Barlow is a good enough basketball player to be getting all the minutes that he is. And when everyone is back healthy, and let's say your starting lineup is Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, Edgecombe, Oubre, okay? When everyone's back healthy, that's your five. If you're telling me Barlow's coming in for 12 to 16 minutes, I'm okay with it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. But asking him now to play like 30-some minutes a night, he's overexposed. He's like a utility player that everyone loves in baseball, but when the guy gets too many at-bats, he shows you why he should be a utility player and not a starting player in Major League Baseball. To me, Barlow's the same way. Barlow's gotten so much time that people have basically exposed him and put him in a position where, you know, the only reason why he's getting playing time is, as you heard Austin say, because he plays a little defense and he can cut to the basket. He's giving you nothing else, or at least nothing else on a consistent basis. So I think Justin Edwards is the guy to watch out for as we go down the stretch of this season. He is somebody that you can look at and say, could this guy be that guy down the stretch? Because you know what? You got 14 games left in the season. And of those 14 games, and again, I'm projecting when I say this, you're going to end up playing 8 playoff teams. So 8 out of your final 14 games are going to be against playoff teams. Why not test yourself? Why not say, hey, Justin Edwards, sink or swim when you play Charlotte or Detroit or San Antonio or Houston? Now's the time to find out if these are guys or not. Now, I personally have zero faith in some of these guys, but I think overall, if the Sixers have them on the roster, they're here for a reason. Now it's time to find out if that reason that you have them on the roster is real or if it's a fantasy. Because if it's a fantasy, you got to pivot real hard and real quick because the postseason is a month away. All right, we'll check back in on the text board on the other side. 609-403-0973. That is the White Horse RV text board. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling for Mike Gill on St. Patrick's Day on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. Have you checked out the most loved Indian restaurant in South Jersey? The Nizam's Indian Restaurant on Route 40 in Egg Harbor Township is amazing and ready to serve you delicious Indian dishes. NJ.com ranked them the #2 best restaurant in all of New Jersey. At Nizam's, they believe that dining is more than just great food. It's the whole experience. The Nizam's open 7 days a week from 11:30 a.m. to 9:30. Join them for a special lunch buffet on Sundays from 11:30 to 3. Visit thenizams.com for more information.
Time for March fun. Fill out your brackets and head to Ventnor Social to catch all the live action of the basketball tournament. Watch every game on 20 big screens. Enjoy game day food specials, wing specials, and cold drafts. While you're there, create your own action and play one of the many video games they have on site in their arcade. Ventnor Social is your basketball headquarters this March. Ventnor Social on Ventnor Avenue. Visit their Facebook page for up-to-date info and specials.
Hold on to your shirts. Actually, forget the shirt.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. Major League Baseball suspending Phillies outfielder Johan Rojas for the first 80 games of the regular season, who testing positive for a performance-enhancing substance. He's eligible to return on June 25th. However, he cannot play for the Phillies in the postseason. Last season, he hit .224 with 1 home run and was demoted to AAA Lehigh Valley on August 1st. NBA, the Sixers are in Denver tonight where they'll take on the Nuggets. It begins a 3-game road trip. They'll also play Sacramento and Utah. Philadelphia coming off a win Sunday against Portland and have won 3 of their last 4. Denver, led by Nikola Jokic, the 3-time MVP, has 27 triple-doubles on the year. The Flyers are in Anaheim Wednesday night for a matchup with the Ducks. Philadelphia lost in a shootout to Columbus Saturday, but they've earned at least 1 point in 7 of their last 9 games. They'll face an Anaheim team that leads the Pacific Division with 77 points. World Baseball Classic tonight, the United States facing Venezuela in the championship. Mets starter Nolan McLean will go for the United States. Eduardo Rodriguez will counter for Venezuela. The sports update brought to you by Progressive. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Nothing dramatic or crazy in the forecast here. Unseasonable cold will be with us for another day, and then we kick into our next welcome warming trend. Tonight, mainly clear and chilly, low temperature 28 degrees. Tomorrow, sun and clouds, still on the cold side, high of only 39. Better on Thursday for the last day of winter, mostly sunny, high 49. More clouds and more seasonable Friday, high 55. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
We have the perfect solution for sitting in traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Almost 5:30 on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll be back. Well, first of all, we have this hour. One more opportunity for you to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway coming up in about 25 minutes from now. But then tomorrow will be the last live show of the Sports Bash this week. We will have the NCAA tournament on Thursday and Friday from 12 p.m. to midnight, Thursday and Friday, here on 97.3 ESPN. Also streaming on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And if you want to get in on all of the action, you got to go to Ocean Casino Resorts Madness Zone. From March 19th to 22nd, catch every college game and place your bets at Atlantic City's best sports book while you watch, eat, and drink all tournament long. Turn it into a getaway with the Madness Zone hotel package, an overnight stay plus a $50 food and beverage credit. Book now at oceanac.com. We'll check back in the Whitehorse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973. I see Dan from EHT and others chiming in. Just a reminder, tonight on 97.3 ESPN, we have the first four tonight and tomorrow starting at 6:30 p.m. Then we will go from the first four to the Sixers game at 10 p.m. tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow night, we will have the first four, and then we'll go to the Flyers game at 10 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. So we got a lot of college basketball going on coming up. I know Jeff Mosher was mad at me on Monday because I had my bracket done. I'll have the bracket done tomorrow, and I'll have some picks for you guys tomorrow on the Sports Bash. We will also be joined by Chris Vanini, who covers college basketball for The Athletic. We'll get his insights and preview from him on the college scene with all the madness going into full swing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that'll be a good conversation with Chris Vanini tomorrow here on 97.3 ESPN. I will say this. The closer we get to the tournament, the more conviction I have about certain results, matchups, teams. You know, like, for example, I am pretty much convinced at this point, because of who Alabama does not have, that they are not making a deep playoff run. They're just not. You know, without one of their best players, Holloway, I just don't think they're going to make a deep run. And I'm also convinced that certain other teams are not going to play well either. I think that you are going to see how thin certain teams are in this tournament. Like, I don't have Duke making a deep run because they have injuries. I have North Carolina losing in the first round of the tournament because of their injuries. I look at the tournament and I see a lot of guys who are not playing and how that will impact the outcome of this tournament. Speaking of basketball, Dan EHT chimes in on the text board at 609-403-0973. Don't forget the Whitehorse RV text board. Whitehorse RV Center in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at Whitehorse RV. Dan EHT says Sixers' schedule is horrific the rest of the season. They may win only 3 of 4 games. Maybe, says Dan and EHT. Well, I'll review the schedule with you really quick. So, I think Sacramento and Utah are wins. All right? Those are coming up this week. Chicago next Wednesday theoretically should be a win. That'll be your third one. Washington is a team that doesn't want to win games, so that's a fourth win. Indiana, they don't want to win games. That's a fifth game. The final game with Milwaukee is a coin flip, depending on who does or doesn't play at that point. So, I could see 6 wins on this schedule. I mean, 6 isn't great. But you heard Austin Krell say, in the NBA, sometimes teams just have somebody who goes off. So, maybe when Embiid and Paul George come back, maybe you string together some wins somewhere. Maybe you do beat Charlotte on the 28th when both guys are back. Maybe you do win the game at home versus the Timberwolves, right? Because Anthony Edwards now, he is going to be out for a couple weeks with an injury. So, maybe that's where you add another couple wins, right? Maybe you go from projected 5 to 6 wins, maybe 7 to 8. And now, instead of finishing the year with 43 wins, now you're finishing with 45. Maybe those 2 wins make that much of a difference. I just look at certain teams and I realize even if the Sixers are 100% healthy, certain teams are just a bad matchup. The San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons, they have players that will neutralize what you do good. And they have players who are really good at what you're not good at. So, Danny HT, maybe not 4 wins, but maybe 6 or 7. And I think that's in part because I'm trying to be realistic about when it comes to who the other team is as well. More text coming in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 69403-0973. We were talking with Nick Earnshaw in the last hour about how expensive tickets are for the WBC final between the U.S. and Argentina. Jeff from Ocean City chimes in and says, on the affordable ticket note, I took a look at the afternoon session in Philadelphia for the NCAA tournament games. Prices are very affordable. I will be attending the NCAA tournament games on Friday in Philadelphia. Well, I think it's a smart move by you, Jeff, because one, the NCAA tournament is just such a wild and fascinating setup, right? I think that there's nothing more exciting than the tournament in terms of you don't even need to have anything invested necessarily. You don't have to have, sometimes you watch a game and you're like, why am I watching this game? The NCAA tournament is just so much wild and craziness that you don't need to feel that way. You can just be like, hey, I'm here to enjoy the game. And let's see, who's playing on those days? So, Jeff, you got the Philadelphia games on Friday. Virginia versus Wright State. Well, Virginia will probably win that game. Ooh, UCLA versus UCF. Some people are picking UCF in an upset in that game. So that's interesting. Also on that schedule, UConn versus Furman. Now, the only problem with the UConn game is that's a very, very late game. How many people are actually going to be at that UConn Furman game in Philadelphia? I think that's a huge bit. It's a bad job by whoever put that schedule together. Why is a team? Yeah, you're in the Eastern bracket and you're playing at 10 o'clock at night. That feels like a fail by. I'm looking through the schedule, right? Right. So why is Virginia and Wright State tipping off at 1:50? You're telling me they couldn't have tipped off an hour earlier when Texas Tech and Akron are tipping off? You could have swapped those teams right there. And that would have maybe moved up the other games. Let's see, Tennessee's going to play a TBD team in the play-in tournament. So if you would have moved, you could have moved everyone up an hour, basically, is what I'm saying. So Tennessee could have been 3:25 or 3:15. And then the late game would have been 9 o'clock. I think it would be much, much better for everybody. I never understood why they make some of the decisions they do at these times. Not everyone wants to stay up late to watch a game. More text coming in at 69403-0973 on the Whitehorse RV text board. Jeff from Port Norris says, I like the Hollywood pickup for the Eagles. This could be a major upgrade for the slot. He could be a guy who catches 7 or 8 touchdowns. Jeff from Port Norris. Yeah, Jeff, I think it's interesting about Hollywood Brown because Hollywood Brown's the kind of player who does have that deep threat explosiveness. And if you get this coming season, you're not just going to be in more games that you can win, but you're probably going to ensure that you win the division again. And I agree, Hollywood Brown does have that potential. And you heard Adam Caplan talk about the fact that Jalen Hurts is really good at throwing a deep ball. And if you have a guy that's really good at running a deep ball, one, it leans into Jalen Hurts' strength. Number two, it's going to clear out more space underneath for guys like Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Two guys who are not breakers deep like Hollywood Brown can be. Hollywood Brown is like a bona fide, like 4.4 speed kind of guy. I don't remember exactly what he ran at the combine, but he is one of those stud receivers that can just go super fast. Just pedal to the metal, go, 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 go. By the way, our poll question of the day at 973 ESPN. Let's reset on that point. I haven't touched on that since we talked with Nick Earnshaw. But I asked you guys earlier in the day. We put a poll question up. We've been taking your answers throughout the day on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. The priority for you to watch tonight. It's a very interesting day in sports. Very interesting day. Remember, the March Madness begins tonight. Coverage begins at 6:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. Then you have the USA in the WBC final at 8 p.m. The Sixers play at 10 p.m. So I wanted to know, what are you guys watching? Now, this is very interesting because when this poll was up for the first hour and a half of the show, the dominant answer was USA in the WBC final. Like, we were at like 80% of the voters. Now I'm looking at it, and the WBC USA game, as the only game you're interested, has gone from almost 80% to 53%. The Sixers at 10 p.m., I guess the Sixer fans have finally showed up for the poll. Because they went from 0% at one point to 23%. There are 15% of you who are saying NCAA first four only. And then there's 8% of you who are saying, I'm going to watch college basketball first four until USA WBC starts. So very, very interesting splits on the voting here. And we've got a lot of people on the text board at 609-403-0973. That is how you get in touch with us on the Whitehorse RV text board. A lot of people said they are going to watch the WBC tonight. And I think it's very interesting for one reason. When this WBC first started, I think a lot of people were indifferent about it. I think a lot of people were not excited for it. And now seeing the way it's played out, seeing the U.S. made it to the final, it's kind of like hockey with the Olympics, where maybe you weren't watching hockey for the whole postseason, but now that you get to the final, changes everything, right? Your context completely changes. Just absolutely wild stuff. Let's try to squeeze in one more text on the Whitehorse RV text board at 69403-09. Oh, Danny HC says, I'm watching everything tonight. Well, I don't think that makes other people not a sports fan, though, Danny HT. Because you said, I'm a sports fan, I'm watching everything tonight. I said this earlier and I'll say it again. I think there are some people who look at all the games tonight and they're saying, I have things I need to do. Maybe you need to go to the store. Maybe you need to run errands. Maybe maybe you're having a St. Patrick's Day party at your house. You got to stop by the local liquor store, right? Maybe you're somebody maybe your kids are playing sports tonight, right? So there's a lot of people who might not be 100% engaged. And in their mind, they got to pick and choose. And there's a lot of people like this. Sometimes you got to pick and choose what you have time to watch. So some people might say, you know what? I can't really watch the tournament games. I'll listen on 97.3 ESPN for the coverage. But otherwise, I'm going to run my errands, make sure I'm home for 8 o'clock for the USA and WBC final. There might be other people who say, you know what? My night's going to get started with the basketball. I'm going to put the WBC. And when the Sixers come on, I'm going to bed because I got to go get up for work tomorrow morning. So it's always interesting to see the different perspective on this stuff. So I don't think it's as simple, Dan HT, as being a sports fan or not. I think there's some people who are diehard sports fans who just don't care about certain sports. I mean, we got one person chiming in on the YouTube stream. I think this is an example of someone interesting. If you're watching on YouTube at 973 ESPN, Leslie chimes in and says, I wish I could watch sports tonight, but I got to work this evening. Living in the real world stinks, she says. I couldn't care less about the WBC. I'm more worried about the players for my team, not the country as a whole, which is very fair. So a lot of people who look at the players and say, don't get hurt, come back to my team healthy. Leslie goes on to say the WBC and Olympics are scams. I don't know if they're scams, Leslie, but I understand where you're coming from. That is, it's the feeling that when you see a player from your team, right, and you look at them and you see them go down, right, with a possibility of an injury. You know, someone trips over someone falls. You get anxious because you don't want your favorite player to not play because they got hurt in a competition that has no bearing or impact or weight on your favorite team. You know, Aaron Nola with Team Italy, Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber on Team USA. There's probably a lot more people who want to admit that there's probably a lot of people who don't want to admit that when their player gets injured, that's what they hate about international competition, because the number of people who do get injured in these competitions is so low, but it typically feels like when someone does get injured, it's a much larger problem. And it becomes, being a lasting impact. Like Sidney Crosby, he got injured for Team Canada, and he missed the first couple of weeks back after the Olympics ended because of the injury he sustained in the Olympics. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that point. All right, Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Also, we're streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, we didn't get a chance to get to it earlier, but we will do our Sportsmanlike Moment of the Day, and then we'll wrap up the show and get you to, we got to get you to opportunity to qualify. Your next opportunity to qualify is coming up for the Phillies trip giveaway. Yes, when you hear the sounder, you call the number, you qualify, and then you must be present next Thursday, March 26th, when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live from the Anchorage in Summers Point for Phillies opening day, and you can win a trip to see the Phillies in Baltimore, but you must be present to win next Thursday, March 26th, and you got to qualify coming up in just a few minutes here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
Need a new car and have no idea. It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
26 Matt Black Kia Sportage, $129 per month. All new 27 Matt Black Kia Telluride, $339 per month. Plus, get up to $3,000 over KBB fair market value for your trade.
Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
24-month leases, $59.99 due at site. Call 888-506-4132 for details. Offers don't combine. Expires month end.
March Madness is coming.
It's inside to the freshman. Spins and hits.
To 97.3 ESPN.
All right, there it is, the final sounder of the day. Be caller number 7, 609-573-3776. We got a couple opportunities for you to qualify today for the contest. Again, 609-573-3776. We're going to take multiple qualifiers for this time here as we are wrapping up only a couple more sports bashes until Phillies opening day, March 26th. With Mike Gill and Sports Bash are broadcasting live, and you can win a trip to see who again? Oh, right. The Phillies at the Orioles. You get to go, but you got to qualify, and then you must be present next Thursday at the Anchorage in Summers Point. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. We'll be back one more day tomorrow for Hump Day Wednesday on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody.
Ocean Casino Resort is your headquarters for college basketball during Madness Zone. March 19th through the 22nd, watch every big moment and place your bets at Atlantic City's best sports book while enjoying food and drinks all tournament long. Make it a getaway with the Madness Zone Hotel Package, an overnight stay plus a $50 dining credit. Taste Atlantic City is happening now through March 31st with